Infinite Plane Saturday, October the 21st, 2023. We survived all the ominous predictions about 1019, and the Seattle earthquake simulation didn't turn out any real casualties. They didn't psyop it, it was just a drill. But it's notable that they just faked a massive earthquake in Seattle. It's notable because the crisis actors are in place. They may already have filmed the special effects for some future calamity. That was Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Where's the curve? A question that, as of yet, still remains unanswered. The curve is in your mind, if there is one, in which case you are a curvert. You are a curvert unless you have some kind of optical anomaly. Like, for example, Jimmy Kimmel claims he can see the curve of the Earth from the beach. That's why we affectionately dubbed him Jimmy Curvert, because you know he's lying. Let's see what we have here. Rocco Calzone, Clockwork 113, Auto Hoaxer, P Trippa 103, Jesus Cow, P Trippa says, hope you're feeling better. Yeah, I had a strain in my back, and it's my fault. I deserved it. I mean, it won't happen again. I was exercising poor lifting technique, re-racking a barbell. It wasn't even that heavy, but I just should have dropped it down before I did the 180 to face the other direction. I think I didn't even feel it for 24 hours, but it ended up feeling like a knife in my back, and I couldn't really do anything except for write and read, which is fine. And while I was doing that, I was watching movies, and I saw that World War Z was showing downtown, so I went to go see it, and I was kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised at this point that World War Z, even though it came out years ago and has plenty of predictive programming for the COVID thing, has relevance to right now, to today. I wrote a short blog piece on it, World War Z and Israel's 9/11, which we'll get into here in just a moment, because it's not just another mindless zombie movie blaming the fall of mankind on climate change. That's just part of it. It actually has some deeper connections to 2020 rabies infection in Taiwan, but ultimately it has some other subtext which I want to get into. But there's a scene in there where Brad Pitt survives a plane crash, and a piece of jagged debris had actually gone through his back, and he had to pull it out. And I was like, I knew exactly how he felt. Anyway, it only lasted about 24 hours and the pain went away. It was simply a strain, not a big deal. I got a lot of work done. Joined by Linda Curtis, who might be the original Wonder Woman if you believe Xmas Eve Evil and Dave J. That'd be Lydia Carter. Yeah, there's a rumor that I'm friends with Wonder Woman. Osher06. Maddie33 says, finally got to catch a live. Yeah, I'm going to try to maintain Infinite Plane Saturday. The next week and a half should be interesting. I'm starting the IPS Cyber Symposium series. This is when the think tank, which is certainly not street legal, but it's road worthy, it's when the IPS think tank hits the road. And you're going to see it's going to be a hybrid live in-person event, and it's not going to be preaching to the choir. It's not a conference where you hang out and drink and bowl and make friends. We have a purpose for every single one of these meetups, and it has to do with Autohoaxology 101 and solidifying this network of individuals who have overcome the mainstream media stranglehold over mass perception. And there's enough of us here. I think I'm not going to say it's going to change the status quo. I mean, not during an election year. There's no way people are going to tune out. And that's not even my intention. I just want to make this parallel media thing exist permanently as a fixture. Not this fake alt media, which is just a cesspool of recycled Q drops, old memes, out of context trutherisms that amount to nothing because they're put within the context of the fake news. It's all about perspective and frame of reference. And if you're still using Big Brother's viewfinder to frame your existence, yeah, you're still in the deception. Joined by Stranger Days. Northern Girl, P. Trippa says, earthquakes can be manufactured. It's common research in the fringe mud flood theory realm. Yeah, absolutely. And my eyes are still on Seattle. Ever since They cleared out 1,800 Amazon workers because of a quote crime wave. I was like, that's got to tie into this simulation for a 42-foot tidal wave that would hit Seattle were a 7.5 earthquake to hit the area. That 7.5 earthquake scenario with the 42-foot waves actually correlated with season 4, episode 2, or we're talking about Stranger Things, where like the city actually cracked open with a 7.5 magnitude earthquake, spewing out hellfire and ashes looking like fallout. My point is, many of these movies have predictive programming for some kind of fallout nuke event, and Seattle seems to be in the crosshairs and has been for some time. And keep in mind, I'm not in the business of prophecy or making predictions, but if you look at any of these major transformative psychodrama psyops from 9/11 to Convid, they all happen after decades of predictive programming. They're inserting it into the culture in advance, and the media is fulfilling its own prophecies all the time. And to P. Trippa 103's point, earthquakes can be manufactured. Yeah, if you can make a movie about earthquakes, you can manufacture earthquakes. You just need a lot of crisis actors and special effects and a total monopoly. And it may not look like there's a monopolistic hold over mass media, like, oh, this country has their own media, and the left hates the right, and there's independent media and alt media you can trust, like Stu Peters. No, it's monolithic. And what I mean by this is they all have the same frame of reference, and that is the monolith. That is the ubiquitous screen, the Bible of our era, the official version according to the World State Church. Yeah, mass media is the de facto world state religion. And I'm here saying that their God is a construct that you should reject. They don't have a word for what we are yet. You can't say atheists because it's outside of that realm. Auto hoaxer's the best they have. And that was just to imply that we were, in a knee jerk fashion, calling everything fake. And I'm like, even if that were true, even if that was true, and we had no discrimination, we would be right far more than all the people who automatically assume it to be real. And at no time has this been clearer than the present with what is going on in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Israel, and all that drama, which I think was predicted, programmed in advance. In advance. For example, the 40 headless baby scenario happening on the 33rd anniversary of the incubator baby massacre hoax. Not to mention the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur. These are all coordinated. Mind, I think it's called, no, Modern Warfare 3 came out on 10/6 on that actual anniversary date. So you had millions of people in this simulated modern warfare environment in a video game just before it breaks out on the news. It's all integrated. This mind control system is monolithic. Joined by maskless, faceless gardening gal says 2 weeks ago they ran a plane crash simulation at an airport in Seattle. Lots of crisis actors here. Thank you for the intel. Because what they're doing is they're finding out who's in the club. They're putting key personnel in place. Oh, like you're really good at this pretending to be a victim thing. You want to sign an NDA and take part in something. And I also think that when it comes to these drills, the reason why you don't have whistleblowers is they're paid well and they agree with the end goals. Imagine if you were a liberal gun grabber and someone said, hey, we can simulate a mass casualty event, put it on TV as real, and influence the public into giving up their guns and save the lives of kids. And you would say, wait a minute, you're saying we could lie and create fake dead kids and kill them and save real lives? I can do that. That's definitely acceptable. It's what you would call, I think you call these things the noble lie or something like that. There's various ways that people justify. The end justifies the means. Let's lie about some fake dead kids and save real lives. And they might actually believe this is just some sort of activism they're engaging in, propaganda. Eddie F says the new Leonardo DiCaprio movie has some truth in it. Freemasonry was on the movie. I'm going to watch it. You're talking about the one about I know which one. I just saw the trailer. They said it's his best work. And Leonardo DiCaprio is a very interesting character. I often point out how these actors have certain archetypes or they have certain symbols attached to them that they carry movie to movie, and so you have to look at them as a contiguous whole. The same character that you saw in the Titanic, you could consider that to be the same person in Don't Look Up. And when you look at it from this perspective, you can see, okay, they carry a deeper message. For example, the Titanic movie, it's about a boat sinking, and Leonardo is the face of that movie. Well, Don't Look Up is about the Earth as Titanic about to sink because of a space iceberg, a comet. And the only person who has any sense who's warning anybody is Leonardo DiCaprio. It's part of creating these parallels. He was also in Django Unchained, which has a lot of interesting subtext related to BLM and the, I guess you would call it the CRT, Critique of America. And then, of course, he's a major greenie. Isn't he friends with Greta? He has a massive carbon footprint, but he has a miniature actual footprints. Have you seen his feet? Not that I look at that kind of stuff, but he was on his mega yacht, and there's a photo of him on his mega yacht, and I was like, wait a minute, that's strange. Because his feet are basically in front, and they just seemed extremely small relative to the rest of him. But anyway, yeah, he gets on a mega yacht. He's got a massive carbon footprint, and yeah, he will never make up for it, no matter how small his actual feet. Joined by HLG, GLH, ears up. Salty Siren says, Happy Saturday. I'm all shook up Elvis. Yeah, Elvis is a big part of the predictive programming for the coming 9/11ing of Seattle. And I guess we can just use that term 9/11ing. I think in Israel they said they had 15 9/11s that day. Your 10/7 was 15 9/11s? What is that up to? Yep, 10/7 was 15 9/11s. And it was an inside job. They're just recycling the post 9/11 guardrail alternative narratives for people to get mad about. Joined by X322, Citizen Z, Symbia, awesome. Mom with Sons, yay, Saturday. Portal Complex, Napoleon Wilson, Reverse History, thank you for joining. Cope says Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm only interested in watching that movie because when you have individuals that are used to carry such momentous propaganda messages, they're not going to have a movie where it's meaningless. Every single thing they do, every appearance for that matter, needs to be looked at in this context. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, part of World War Zero, cutting mankind's carbon footprint in half when the Terminator movie was about killing man because he's killing Gaia. These aren't coincidences. Or the fact that he's, Schwarzenegger that is, he's the paragon of toxic masculinity with his big gun and his big muscles and all this stuff. Meanwhile, James Cameron, the director of the movie, says that, I guess he actually said that masculinity itself is a toxin, that testosterone is a toxin. So T2, Terminator, too much testosterone. Baja Pickleball says, best show alive, Fepinati. Yep, and this is just beginning. We're in the early stages. We had to, assemble the rafts, which we've done. We've established the parallel media as a thing, and it does exist, and it is self-aware. But the next stage is for it to amass all of its numbers and become self-aware as a unified entity. That's why you've been using the Kraken imagery. That's the key here. Because the red pill thing was co-opted by alt media, and you get these characters like Tucker Carlson, who's like, wow, the George Floyd story was a lie? He died from fentanyl? That's like a recycled side story, a recycled alternative narrative 3 years old that in no way challenges the essential fakery of the thing. But he's like, look at me, I'm blowing a whistle on Twitter. I'm like, who falls for this stuff? But that's where red pill, that's where conspiracy is. And they see someone like Tucker, who's a fake populist, as their way to reach mass media because they're under this delusion, and this is truthers in general. They're under this delusion that if they can just get their truth out, people will, quote, wake up. And it's like, so you guys aren't awake. It's the false awakening. You went from the blue pill dream world where you were comfy into the red pill nightmare, which is just as fake but deeper in the deception, deeper in the weeds. Okay, I was told by Eddie F. that it's a great movie. This one with DiCaprio. I'll take a look. He's actually a good actor. I think he got called DiCaprio by Michael Savage originally, and it's probably over his green stuff. And that's one of the things here is that they do take the best actors, the best artists, the best musicians, the best writers, and they turn them into mouthpieces for their bigger agenda. So yeah, he's a climate shill. And he's a hypocrite. I wouldn't even rip on him if he gave his wealth, if he burned it, because we don't need that. It's bad for the environment. If he had just destroyed his wealth somehow, and if he just walked around in Birkenstocks and lived green, meditated a lot, whatever, ascetic lifestyles. Like I heard Greta got arrested recently, and I'm like, good. Arrest the greenies. They're the ones who want to put you in jail. They want to jail your families. They want you to be part of this ubiquitous lockdown society to save Gaia. It's like, well, you first. If you're an environmentalist, if you believe in global warming and you drive a car, you're a sick hypocrite. You really are. And if we do get flooded, you deserve it. Spirit Jordak says there was an asteroid in DiCaprio's movie Revenant without anything to do with the plot. Hmm. Interesting. Because in the movie Don't Look Up, it was a comet to hit the Earth in 6 months, 14 days. 614 is Trump's birthday, which had some interesting connections there. And I was the one, I think, the first one to point out that when they made him the face of Don't Look Up, it was really about two things. Well, three things. One, he's this new Noah warning us of this coming flood. And I often talk about the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, how that's the new Noah. They appropriated the symbol of the dove and everything else. But he was also agoraphobic. He had to keep taking pills because of his anxiety. He was scared of going outside because he knew the comet was coming, the meteor was coming. He was agoraphobic, like you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be afraid of open spaces. I'm algoraphobic. I totally reject that notion that we need to lock down to save the Earth. So he's this Noah character. He's aware of how perilous our situation is, and he's unable to do anything because of the greedy corporate, these tech kind of like corporate overlords are like, no, we're going to mine the asteroid. We're not going to deflect it. So they reintroduced Noah, and he's warning us, and everyone's laughing at him. And I think that's even part of Revelation. It's like when the ark doors slam shut, it was a little too late. I think is that Genesis 6:6 or something. The idea being, of course, they didn't listen to Noah. But then another part of it is don't look up. Well, don't look up is also a reference to don't look up information, because one of the things about the movie was that the misinformation, the questioning of the scientists, don't look up, don't use the question mark, that is what brought about our demise. So we shouldn't even be looking up and questioning the priesthood. Yeah, there it is. Go to the ark and your whole family, because I have found you're righteous in this generation. Great story, although it's a little backward to me. If I wrote the Bible, I would make it so that Satan is the one that floods everybody, and God is the one that saves them with the ark. I don't know why they got that backward. They're like, wait, who's the good guy here? Not quite understanding this. Okay, another aspect to it, of course, this Don't Look Up movie was the whole Titanic thing. The Titanic as a metaphor for the West, which they've already attached to 9/11 and the towers sinking. The Titanic sinking. Now it's the West as the Titanic as the Earth about to sink. And at this time, you had DiCaprio with his ridiculous mega yacht. Bezos was out there flexing on his mega yacht. Salty Siren says Trump's birthday is allegedly a new Mandela effect. Yeah, the Mandela affected, the reality fluid are not reliable sources of anything at this point. Unbelievable. It's still around. Let me read this, because I went to go see World War Z and Israel's 9/11. I checked out this theater where I planned to stream or air, or play, South Pole. We've been working on South Pole behind the scenes here, and I think if we can get the production value where it needs to be, standardize the lengths as we've been discussing, utilizing all the tools we have, including ChatGPT, I would like to produce something that we could maybe even play before a general audience just for reactions. And this latest South Pole episode has a scene I'm working on now, which has, just say, Ben Shapiro and baby heads as part of it. Linda Curtis says the Noah story is a Titanic story. Yeah, pretty much. The whole environmentalist movement is based on a reiteration of Noah's flood, which is stolen from what? The Epic of Gilgamesh? It's all recycled. And in fact, they have replaced with their iconography, this is all syncretism, religious syncretism with their symbolism, they have actually turned the god of death and rebirth into the god of recycling. The green god. The original vegetation god Osiris, the god of the earth, is green, and the recycling movement is all about this. I have some water bottles here, and the company is called Reborn or something, and it says, recycle these so they can be reborn as a pair of denim jeans. I'm like, what? And I look at it, and it's like, if you look closely, the three nails on the recycling bin, the cube thing, and the cube is basically the same symbol as the cross. It's the folded up cross, and the cube represents this material realm, the earth, and the earth god, of course. When you're recycling, what are you recycling for? You're trying to please the earth god. You're letting him know you're sorry for being a consumer, and you're trying to expiate some of that guilt because of your excessive carbon footprint so that he doesn't flood you. You're trying to show him that you're sorry for your wickedness. I mean, it's really sickening. It's genuflecting. When you're in front of that recycling dumpster, you are kneeling before the altar of Baal. And if you look at the three arrows, it actually does create a triangle up, and then in between the arrows, a triangle down. It's a six-pointed star. It's the symbol of the earth god, another version of it. And you could look at the three nails also symbolically here as tying into the idea, this general motif of the dying, recycled sun god, etc. Yes, Salty Siren says, sorry for existing. Exactly. The original sin in this new modern context is your carbon footprint. It's not Adam and Eve, it's your carbon footprint. Every breath you breathe, every breath you take is basically, it's a zero-sum game, is what I mean. Like, I often talk about how this is a closed system. Mentally, they've created a closed system for us so they can control access, monopolize, scarcity. And by zero-sum game, it's built to inculcate envy, where if someone does good, oh, it's because a lot of people did bad. It's not reality, but that's the kind of class envy construct they put into everything. And it's also tied into environmentalism. Like, we're meant to look at someone like Leonardo DiCaprio and think that he's condemning us all. Meanwhile, he's going to survive on his yacht. We get flooded. Do you think it's going to bother the Bezoses or the DiCaprios? Not at all. They will rise above. And speaking of which, I've often spoken about how Jeff Bezos is the world stage counterpart to Nimrod, the builder of the Tower of Babel. Without getting into the details there, it's notable that post-flood, Nimrod was the builder of the first civilization. So it's kind of interesting because he's kind of poised to do just that. Okay, continuing. Off the Wall 74 says, I think we're all missing the big picture. Daytime soap operas are real. Yeah. We live on a movie set, and we are extras in a reality TV show that has been written by the power elite and will go down in history as how things actually happened. It's an entirely scripted reality, and they don't appreciate your input. They don't ask for it. They don't want it. They will eliminate it or exclude it if it doesn't echo them. We're meant to live in this echo chamber. Interestingly, Echo is from mythology, was a suitor of Narcissus, and she was cursed to only be able to repeat whatever somebody else just said. And so there she is in love with a narcissist, just repeating him. And I'm like, that's pretty much every person's relationship with the mass media. It doesn't care about you. It's cultivating and maintaining its own image at your expense. And you're not welcome unless you echo. Okay, this is from a couple days ago. World War Z and Israel's 9/11, predictive and concurrent programming. Again, I thought it was going to be a mindless zombie movie blaming the fall of man on climate change, and they mentioned it at the very beginning. And I think they do this in all movies now. Like every single science fiction movie out there starts off with, after climate change destroyed the world because of capitalism, this happens. It's cliche at this point. It's actually a thing. It's called cli-fi, climate fiction, where they got rid of the guys with the knives chasing through the woods and they've replaced it with Gaia's retribution. That's really the enemy in every single major movie now. It's Mother Nature getting back. So man's the enemy. Man's the enemy of man because man's the enemy of Gaia, and Gaia's getting back at man, and the rest of us are just innocent, caught up in the retribution that's being meted against those who are, you know, mostly able to rise above it. Like the rich people who are destroying the world are the most insulated from the effects of climate change. That's the general story they tell. They say it disproportionately affects the poor. I really picked up on this a couple years ago when you had that 19-story building in the Bronx burn at the Twin Parks apartments. And the whole story was about how space heaters caused the building to burn. And they said, well, it wasn't space heaters. It was actually the rich people because they caused climate change and the poor couldn't afford to heat their places, so they bought these cheap space heaters. So space heaters became a symbol of inequity. All right, let's see here. Continuing on this thing, this movie, again, zombie movie, climate change was mentioned, but the real cause was rabies in Taiwan. They didn't mention a bat, but it was pretty much the same story. Kind of shady about the origins. It was replete with predictive programming for 2020, masks, etc., and the instant, chorus of "we need to get the vaccine." Now, the zombie movies, in my view, have always been predictive programming for future lockdowns, traumatizing people about the unvaccinated so they don't resist quarantine. It was a pre-sales pitch for the vaccine, which would be, the fake solution to the fake problem. And not only that, but it's a sales pitch for this new world order, where now we have to give the government these controls to regulate things in this way because of this new threat. Another thing that I don't often hear people talking about, but I think was a huge part of 2020, 2021, is the further erosion of privacy. Like we already have been trained to commodify our inner thoughts and get rid of privacy and make the private public through social media. But now your private medical status is up for discussion. Anybody at that point where they were like signaling about it, vaccine, selfies, vaccines, it's like there's no privacy anymore. You got to tell everybody what's beneath your skin, what's in your blood. Are you a goo blood or a pure blood? It's like, what if it's nobody's business? No such thing. And after 9/11, they got beneath your skin with the naked body scanners. Do you remember the original controversy about how now the TSA gets to grope you? They get to palpate your body and look at you with an x-ray scanner that lets them see through your clothes. Like, okay, so now the privacy invasion just got one stage deeper. 9/11, 19 years later, COVID. Now they get to know what's in your blood. Next is, and they're not done yet, the next part is what's in your mind, what's on your browser history. I'm starting to wonder if I got blacklisted. I'm still awaiting results on my background check. I'm wondering if maybe it's something I tweeted. Maybe I need to create a new persona to engage the real world that in no way connects to my online opinions, because these may be liabilities in the future. Okay, now the climatic scene. This is the big part. There was a scene in World War Z where there's a tower of zombies climbing into Israel over a newly built wall. Now, this contained a couple tie-ins to our recent situation. So in World War Z, they're climbing over the wall, just like Hamas paraglided over the wall. Second, in the movie, there's an inference that Mossad had advanced knowledge about the coming pandemic, and Israel built up their walls in preparation for the zombie attack. So here's a narrative of, oh, they knew. And even now you hear it, Netanyahu knew. And repeating this stuff like, oh, Bush knew, so we can get into war. They're recycling a lot of 9/11 claptrap, so get ready for that. And third, the Palestinians were allowed in. They opened the gates and they let the Palestinians in. And they said, every person we save is one less zombie we have to fight. So now you have peace, world peace, because of what? An alien threat. And this is another kind of subtext here. How many times have we seen movies where, or scenarios where it's like, we would all be one if we just had an outside threat? I even hear some conservative types talking about missing the days after 9/11 when we were all unified. Like, what do you mean we were all unified? Unified in what? In shock, in terror? You want to go back to that? You want to go back to that and have another trauma bond? Insane. My point being, this movie had a lot of connections to right now with the over the wall, the infiltration, seeing IDF soldiers dying. So you have this merging of Palestine and Israel, but their noisy celebrations draw in the zombies and they all die. So what does that say? If you let them in, you're all going to die. In the movie, they mention the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. And this is a tie-in to the 50th anniversary attack, which we just saw a couple of weeks ago. The fact this movie is being promoted right now on Amazon pretty extensively, an extended version, but moreover, it's being played here downtown. And I'm like, why is it showing at this theater? It's just some innocent zombie movie getting close to Halloween, sure. But now that I looked at it, from a more metascript perspective, the imagery of Israel under attack by zombies, IDF soldiers dying, 9/11 imagery, plus it's, in a post-COVID world, it actually seems to be too much to be coincidence. It's an older movie. I had never watched it. I was actually kind of impressed by it. I didn't think it was as bad as I had heard from some of the. See, George Romero, who did the Night of the Living Dead and kind of created this genre in film, said the movie was too high budget and basically destroyed zombie movies. I think it was like 400 million bucks, but I don't really think so. It's a mostly generic thing. Okay, let me open up phones here. It's Infinite Plane SATURNDAY. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I didn't expect to get through. Is there much background noise?
Not on my end. Just
Okay.
a lot of general. Actually, on my end, I got like a fan in the background. If that doesn't bother you, can you hear me okay?
I think I might have a hum on my line, but you sound good to me. I think this old landline I'm on probably is has issues, but uh, when we start delving down that, the breakdown of infrastructure and everything.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's fortunate for I don't get in that easily. Am I interrupting a particular thread, a
no,
particular
I mean,
discussion thread?
today's just Infinite Plane Saturday, which I leave it open to whatever we talked about in the past week. And we were just talking about World War Z, a Brad Pitt movie I saw the other night that just happens to have this climactic scene where the zombies go over the wall into Israel. And I'm like, this is predictive. Well, it was predictive programming, but they're replaying it downtown, and now it's like this just reinforces what I saw in the news. And I'm just commenting on how you can't escape the MSM echo chamber.
Yeah, I read your piece on World War Z, and I have to tell you that from the very beginning, as soon as I saw those ridiculous paragliders, I'm thinking to myself, "Hey, Granny, break down the shotgun from the shelf." Like I'm Jed Clampett. You could shoot those things down with a shotgun, right? I mean, come on. Then I'm turning around and I'm seeing an interview with a former IDF intelligence officer who says even back in the old days, there's no way that even a stray cat could cross that. They had motion sensors and everything else. She says this is ridiculous. She says there's no way in hell that attack, quote unquote, was a surprise. And she stared right in the camera and said that. It's out there. The
Well, I
video's
mean, look,
out there.
do you agree with me that this is just a recycled template narrative from post 9/11?
Well, the first thing, it's so weird. As soon as I heard the 40 dead beheaded babies, 40 seems to have. You're the numerologist here. I'll get into biblical gematria if you want. The 40 years and all that. But As soon as I said the first thing I thought was what you do, Nayara and her testimony before that committee there. They basically robbed. Oh, they dumped the babies. So out of the incubator. That's the first thing I ask if I see anybody bring. Well, no one wants to talk about it now because it's debunked, right? Or is it?
It's
Has
debunked. Yeah,
Snopes
they said,
debunked it?
yeah, the Kuwaiti baby thing was fake. They admit that was fake. It's on the
Well,
33rd
that's that.
anniversary.
But right, what about this 40 dead babies right here? Though that's turning out to be have originated with a what do you call it? A hearsay from a reporter who allegedly heard it from an Israeli soldier. It's a third part. Blah blah blah.
But again,
My uncle.
the Nyara thing was on 10/10/1990. The 40 baby heads 10/10/2023. Literally 33 to the days to the day, years to the day.
Oh,
They did
you're thinking.
a psyop. It's too
They've
much.
probably got a whole file cabinet full of psyops for that day. There's only 365 days in a year, and there's only, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't index every script. That's a Hill and Knowlton. Hill and Knowlton were the ones who coached Nayara, who was either she was the daughter or the niece of the Kuwaiti ambassador in residence. Is that right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, well connected.
when you, yeah, but Hill and Knowlton were the ones who not only wrote the script, but they coached her in that. They're the ones that really should have been held accountable, and I think they just got bigger contracts from it. But it was so the way they drove people. So the first thing I thought when I heard this, oh, Hamas has beheaded 40 babies. I thought, give me a break. I said, where? I said, did they dump them out of the incubators first? That's what I want to know.
Funny. So
I'm posting that all over the place
you
on
made that
Republican
connection.
sites.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going over to Todd Starnes and Dan Bongino and all the Republican sites around on Facebook, and I'm saying, hey, did they dump those babies out of the incubators first? I hope they sure dumped them out of the incubators onto the cold hospital floor. But here's the thing: there's a couple generations that are too young to even remember that.
Okay, that's the
Uh,
key word,
you-
generation. Okay, you mentioned the 40. I think the 40 may be a reference to the generation, and it may reference, I don't know, it just seems like everything that's happening now is recycled to impact the present generation. Like, let's give them their 9/11. Let's give them their baby atrocity with the
but
terrorists
you're
come.
telling me that young people won't do enough homework to, this is Nick Bostrom's simulation argument. We can get into that. That's exactly what this is. You're telling me that young people out there, Gen Zers and Gen Next, I mean, really young people are not going to be hip enough that they're going to go plowing through libraries of this stuff and say, what are they doing? They're using the same old stupid scripts. And you're telling me because they're video game. These kids are into video game. You're telling me they're not going to go back and say, look at this. This is the same
No,
stupid script. All they've done is change some of the
they will
details.
be gaslit if they question, but for the most part, I think what will happen is they will see the discrepancies and they'll say, wait a minute, this can't be real. Therefore, I'm going to follow this alternative media outlet that agrees with me. They'll get caught up in the political horseshoe, and the fakery becomes just an excuse, I think, to question the narrative, but then they go to the counter narrative. Like, they won't wake up. They will be caught up in the political horseshoe. This doesn't wake people up. It never does. It's just, if anything, it activates them. It wakes them from their dream and puts them in their nightmare state, but they don't break free of the news media's ability to fake reality to them. Like, they can't fake me out. There's nothing the news can do to make me think that, a nuke's going to go off in Seattle and it's real when I see it on TV. I've already kind of disabused myself of the notion they have that power. And I don't think that any amount of exposure to the lies we see now, the mendacity, will cause people to, break that spell. They still kind of accept everything. It's just this one event seems, you know, politicized. A little fog of war, fog of info war.
But it's an emotional need that they're satisfying. Um, kind of it's for affiliation. It has nothing to do with any pursuit of objective truth. It's a deep need for affiliation. Um, because of an environment of what Matthias Desmet called free floating anxiety. I don't know, that might be mystifying it a little or psychoanalyzing it a bit, but maybe free floating anxiety, he says. because of all the alienation and how fucked up society is. And so people are looking for something to. First of all, they're looking for somebody to blame for their alienated state, and they're looking for something a narrative to explain it coherently, and for something to affiliate with. So if the pandemic narrative accords with it, or the climate change narrative accords with it, you affiliate with that. You find a social grouping. It is really about. It has nothing to do with any objective search for truth on the part of the individual. It's about finding a social identity to affiliate with. And that might be
Mm.
ethnic or ideological. So by the way, our friend General Flynn, I knew you'd be interested in this, so I posted some links over at the Tim Osmond Facebook page, which they're probably shadow banning me against you or something. I don't know, but um, General Flynn is out off the reservation. Apparently, he's calling Q out now as a military psyop, and this was a guy who built up Q in the beginning.
Yeah,
He most
yeah.
certainly did
I've
build it up. Yeah.
seen some evidences of his meltdown. I'm looking forward to it. And oh, really quick.
He was on this X-22, this grifter X-22. There's a whole clique. I don't want to say cadre of grifters out there. They're mostly in it for the money. Like a lot of these people clustered around. You remember Jerome Corsi?
Oh yes.
He sort of was in on the ground floor of this. But another one is Ann Vandersteel. And then there was a character who had the online identity on YouTube of Praying Medic. But there were a host of these people that they they were plugged into the Q grift machine because there's a lot of money being made off the coffee mugs, the T-shirts.
Look, for people who don't know, yeah,
You
Q
know,
was a huge grift machine. It really was. Just as a joke once,
from the beginning,
I put Q drops
from the
in a
beginning.
PDF and I sold them on Teespring for $5, and I made more than $200 in
You
revenue.
devil, you.
And I was
You devil.
and I was
You
just
profited off of the psyop. Now look at you. That puts you in a class with DeFango because he was selling. It was so ridiculous.
no, it doesn't.
People were, yeah, he was
'Cause
selling Q coffee mugs, and it's pretty funny.
but I'm taking
Well, that
money.
was the link.
I'm taking money from the brainwashed Q extremists, and I'm putting it into our hands. So you could argue that it's right for me to do that, but they cut it off on Teespring after I sold so many. But I'm just pointing out that's how much money was flying around. If you had a Q flag, somebody's ready to buy
Oh,
it.
oh yeah. For a while there, it was a gold mine. Now you gotta. It's like you're plumbing the depths here of the MAGA constituency, which is to say, there's got to be an audience out there. I don't know, Q moms maybe, Q soccer moms, or there's got to be an audience out there that's got the money to pony up for this. It's kind of like some of the mostly middle-aged women I would see at these exo politics conferences with Jordan Sather. Talk about a grifter, this character. Now we're getting off into the field of ufology. That is to say, if you've seen Mirage Men, and you know the kind of psyops that the Air Force and the Pentagon were running to cultivate this whole ufology zoo from I don't even want to. The one who I think about the most is Alfred Weber, but that's exopolitics. Yeah, where there was a galaxy, an ambassador to the galaxy, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, they brought
Crazy
that in.
shit.
They brought
Michael Salla.
they brought that into Q. They brought in this fringe of Q where eventually it's going to bring in the
Yeah,
UFOs.
they
And
stepped right over.
you
Jordan
notice
Sather was one.
you said
Another one was Wilcock. Is his
hmm
name David Wilcock. David Wilcock. Another one was Benjamin Fulford. Oh, he's been around on this stuff since all the way back to Obama days. In fact, what they did was they took out the same exact websites. I couldn't believe it. When Obama was running, they said Obama was going to arrest all the war criminals and all the gangsters, and he was going to set things right.
really they
And
did
there
that
was
with
going to be
Obama
these.
too.
Yeah, they did, and Benjamin Fulford websites did was change Obama to Trump. That was the craziest thing. They didn't
Oh
change
my
any
goodness.
other wording. And they put those same websites out there, and I'll bet they're still making money
So it's all just
because people
recycled.
want to believe in this. People, I'm telling you, people want to be in that cast of thousands. Have you ever looked at the making of a major Hollywood film spectacle in a small dirt poor town in Texas in the 1950s or 60s, right on into the 70s? One I'm thinking of the most is probably a little dated for your younger audience was James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor, and Rock Hudson in Giant, based on a novel by Edna Ferber, I believe. But
Yeah, I think
one
it's
of these,
been established here that you can definitely fake events that involve lots of people. It's just a matter of compartmentalization. And the UFO thing, though, I want to point this out really quick because it's still huge for some reason. UFO believers have a substandard way of assessing evidence. For them, it's just like it's their hope. So it's not even scientific. It's not even honest. It's actually very dishonest with themselves.
wait a minute, now, don't belittle faith. That is religious faith. It's true. It has nothing to do with science or empiricism. It is a kind of an affirmation of faith. They want to believe in this. Look at Carl Gustav Jung wrote about this. I think as early as the 1950s, when the whole not shortly after Roswell, saying that what he thought was he didn't know whether the phenomenon themselves were really happening, the observations were really occurring, or whether the interpretation of these anomalies didn't reflect more a crisis of modern civilization, modern culture, in the aftermath of this horrible world war, and the specter of nuclear holocaust facing humanity and all the issues that were confronting humanity. Bear in mind, this is Carl Gustav Jung now, the guy that broke with Sigmund Freud, and I think was a lot smarter.
Yeah,
But
I remember in Man
and
and His
he's
Symbols,
saying,
he said that the
right,
UFOs were
right, and
projections of this need for psychic wholeness, and that this circle.
right,
Hmm.
right. And you know who else? Joseph Campbell gets into that in a big way when in the Masks of God, which is just like I guess his 4 volume series on religion, um, Eastern religion, Western religion, modern religion, something he calls creative religion. And at the end, I couldn't believe I was reading this in the 1970s, but he characterized the Star Wars movie cult as a whole, as the foundation of a whole new religion that he thought might supersede in numbers many of the old, traditional religious denominations in America and around the world. That the influence of the movie series was going to create a whole new sort of global cultural, well, cult, basically.
Fascinating. Now, is it far-fetched that a science fiction paradigm could become a dominant religion? I look at science.
Equivalent to Greek mythology, equivalent to the gods of Greek mythology or Norse mythology that we used to study in school. I don't know. Do students in school study Greek mythology or Norse mythology at all these days?
I'm not quite sure. I did independently. I found it to be interesting, but to the point on Star Wars, they clearly designed Luke and Darth to be based off of Night and Day, Sun and Saturn, Lord of Darkness.
Right.
So they have these same archetypes that they're constantly using. And I mentioned this to people. It's like you're watching these outer space dramas, but they're putting you into a more archaic frame of reference. And that's why I've been saying for some time that space is a repackaging of the old concepts of heaven. It's all repackaging. We live in a science fiction version of an older worldview, in my opinion.
Right. And the polycentric illusion of competing superpowers or nation states would have us believe that Russia and China, that the superpowers, that is to say, the ones that are in the club, as you say. Now, India supposedly is now in the club because they landed something on the dark side of the moon. The ones who are in the club, they have arrived, truly arrived, at legitimate superpower status because they're in that lunar fantasy club. They're part of that that new religion. By the way, since we're mentioning General Flynn, they got another general that they're cultivating out there. He may be more important than General Flynn. His name is McInerney. McInerney. McIerney. McInerney, I think is how it's pronounced. He's a general too. I don't know if he's the same as like Flynn. course, they're both 9/11 cowards, 9/11 liars, 9/11 traitors, historically speaking, but that's a separate matter. But anyway, General McKinney is predicting that um, MAGA supporters are going to be tagged as terrorists by the FBI and many of them arrested. He's predicting that right now.
Well, they have already branded MAGA terrorists as such, and I've been pointing out for some time that I believe the QAnon movement was created by General Flynn and others to create the American domestic equivalent of the Taliban with the MAGA ban. That QAnon is Quran, Quran radicals, QAnon radicals. It's a one for one template, and that they just manufacture the threat here so they can carry out their psyops and people will believe it. And when you look at it, who's the enemy of QAnon? Who's the enemy of the Islamists? The deep state, the great Satan, Israel, little Satan. It's the same thing. If you really get down to it, I'm thinking it's a setup for sure. And the fact that they're not going to say that MAGA terrorists are going to wreak havoc, well, the public's ready to accept it. They've been primed. They will believe it when it's faked.
It does tend to resemble the Operation Trust, or a Union of Russian Monarchists operation run by Felix Dzerzhinsky and the Bolsheviks in right after shortly after the Bolshevik seizure of power, and into the 1920s, where they sponsored a classic controlled opposition called the Trust, that propagated the notion that, well, the Bolsheviks were only pretending to believe in what they were in their announced intentions, and really behind the scene there is a patriotic core of former czarist officers and generals that were, ready to set things right, and nurtured all kinds of false hopes. But the target there was the emigre population in the capitals of Europe: Paris, Berlin, London, Amsterdam. Russian czarist and members of the nobility who were emigres, and and initially it was thought, well, they could be, if you set up these dummy organizations somehow or other, you could keep track of them, you could surveil them and watch them. But what happened was it became an opportunity for the new Soviet Cheka to infiltrate Western intelligence agencies, especially the British, because the British got involved in financing a lot of these anti-Bolshevik operations. So it's a game that they play. But you're right. When you look at the QAnon, but the idea behind Operation Trust was, you might as well call it Operation False Hope, because that's all it's really. But you're psychoanalyzing the target population, and then you're just crafting this narrative that will,
Yes,
I guess, seduce them emotionally. And
exactly. They basically what they did is they pandered to the conspiracy theorists and turned them into a voting bloc for the right, and they target marketed in a very sophisticated way. You mentioned middle-aged women was a term you used. I don't think it's a coincidence that JFK Jr. became something of a rock star and a god to the Q movement, because I think a lot of the people who know who he is, I never knew who he was, are pretty much about his age, and they think he's alive, and they might be able to go make out with him if they go to Dallas on 11/22. Like, they basically sold people a bill of goods. They brought out the QAnon shaman to get the more new agey types, and they got the 4chaners. So they built a voting block out of conspiracy theorists on the fringe.
yeah, I kind of see it as a 3 point, sort of like three legs of the stool. One is the kayfabe, which is to say the performances. Kayfabe, as in World Wrestling Entertainment. The performances and drills and the actions, the kinetic aspect of it. Next is cosplay, which is to say you've got all of these activists like, Republicans, Democrats, woke people, some of the people that were running up and down in the streets during the George Floyd business, right? That's the cosplay. You get up in your costume and you pretend to be a commie revolutionary or a conservative patriot flag waver. You get to be that, or one of Donald Trump's minions. That's the
Cosplay.
cosplay aspect of it. Yeah, and then the economics of it are the crisis actors, because somebody's got to make a living. Everybody's got to make a living off this stuff. So
Now,
that's where
cos
the
is just
economy of,
costume, right? Like astronauts are just doing cosplay. Would you say?
oh my, I never realized how big cosplay was. I didn't. especially in the Asian world, but in America too. In America, it's huge. And then if you think about the Republican Party and the Democrats too, but especially these um, Christian patriot, Christian evangelical Republicans who, now think about this for a second. Hold these thoughts in your head at the same time. Here's Donald Trump. This guy, he's on his third wife. He's probably got a busload of strippers in there somewhere, and behind that, maybe another carload of hookers who he's been involved with at one time or another. But the so-called Christian right, who are the guardians of morality and righteousness on the American political scene, the right to lifers, they're going to all pile into the wagon behind this Donald Trump, who they know has been basically sort of a mobbed-up playboy, partying at Steve Rubell's Studio 54 every weekend with a supermodel on two of them, one on each arm, you know? The made man. If he were Italian, he'd be a made man. But he married. We
Wait,
know what the
you're
story is
you're
with
talking
Trump.
about the same Donald Trump who just posted an image of himself in a courtroom illustration seated next to Jesus Christ. That Donald Trump?
Yeah, exactly. You got it. You pinned it. You pinned the tail on the donkey. That is it. And when you see, well, first he was Moses. Who called him Moses? Actually, I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene who started this crucifixion of Trump, our Jesus Trump, when he was indicted in New York. Is that what she was the one who
Yes,
started with that?
he was
But that was
Christified.
around Easter.
Uh-huh,
I
Holy
think
Week.
it yeah, it was around Holy. The timing of it was perfect, really, because then we all started looking around. Well, who would be his disciples? Who would be the ones who would be the Judas who betrayed him, and who would be the doubting would DeSantis be the doubting Thomas, and we all started playing games with that. But yeah, it's crazy. And the thing is, Tim, I don't know what to say because I run into this. I run into this in social media. You got these religious people, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and they're so hard-headed about this stuff. It's like they are willing to sacrifice a painful truth. They don't want to face a certain painful truth because it just might not cohere with, I don't know, their particular theological interpretation of who knows, God and the nature of redemption and the soul, and they
The
just have a certain,
endless equivocation and
well, the
self
Bible, like
gaslighting.
the
They'll say
yeah, the
things
Bible,
like, like God's using him because he's a fallen man, or
right, excuses,
Jesus
right? They're living,
associated with prostitutes, and Jesus
right,
associated with
yeah, right.
the lower of the gutters.
They have endless excuses for every sellout and betrayal that this clown Trump guy comes up with. He's a show for Pfizer now. Give me a break. I could go on for hours about this. But yeah, that picture where you see Trump laughing with Obama and laughing, and they're both laughing at each other, and the caption says, "Guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to convince these people that I'm a Christian." And Obama comes back with, "Oh yeah, that'll work good. It worked for me." It's like these people. Surely, I don't know. Are they that
It's
naive? I mean, this.
Machiavellian. I mean, there's a really good book, 48 Laws of Power. I used to have the audiobook. I used to listen to it when I was on road trips, and one of the lessons in there that is used by every single world leader out there is the faking of religiosity because it convinces the sheeple who are easily led. It's that easy. It's you just you carry a Bible, take a picture, boom, they're all going to vote for you. It's sad, but it works.
Well, it was Samuel Johnson who said that patriotism and piety are the last refuge of a scoundrel. It's when they find him and caught red-handed in their corruption, like Bob Menendez. I mean, the implications of that are not even. I know you're going to say it's all theater, but this guy, he's been in the United States Senate from New Jersey since 2006. He was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Those are the guys that decide whether to appropriate like billions of dollars, whether to start a war, whether to stop a war, who's our friends, who's our enemy, what the foreign policy is. Like he wasn't compromised and blackmailed that whole time, and now they've got him supposedly with a stash of gold bullion in his basement, and cash stuffed into jackets, and I know you're going to say
No, I look.
it's
I don't.
all made up,
I'm
aren't
not.
you? Are you going
I'm
to tell
not a
me it's all
reality
made up?
denialist. Here's what I am. I do recognize that we live in this lie world order infrastructure, but it's on a need to know basis. Not everyone's in on how much is fake. It's very compartmentalized. But the fact that they're not really killing people doesn't take away from the fact that the terrorism is real and the real life consequences and changes in governance is real. So I don't just dismiss it all. I don't know how real these characters are, how much movement or freedom they really have, especially if they're heavily televised. And like Trump, for example, there's no way Trump's a rogue in my view. If you ask me, Trump is playing the role that was scripted before he was born. And I know that sounds, I don't know, black pill or it sounds pessimistic, but no, I think he's a wholly owned puppet of the monolithic media cult that runs this place.
How do they make it work? How do they make it? I exploit you, still you love me. I tell you, one and one makes three. The cult of personality, the cult of personality, the cult of personality. Everybody's looking for that Messiah to save them because they don't have the internal guts to face up to the implications of just how phony it all is. But see, the difference, me, is you're into the simulation aspect of it, and I'm into the simulacrum, which is to say, and I know you're into the simulacrum sometimes as well, but I'm really into the net effect that this is going to have as people who are like people are behavior, for example, is
Yes.
triggered. Where
You mentioned
you know,
the way that they're psychoanalyzing their target audiences. And lately, I've been really looking closely at it from this perspective. And I have a manuscript I'm developing on this very concept that if you look at media as singular, like mediation itself is like weather, it's just like it's this thing that we all have to contend with. And if we can give it a personality in general, what traits would you give it? Well, it talks down to you. It's the authority. You can't really talk back. And when you really get down to what's presented on there, the emotional roller coasters and the news cycle, I think you can argue that the media is narcissistic, that it's a gaslighter. And the long term effects of gaslighting are well known. You know what it does? It creates apathy. It causes people to second guess their perceptions and to go with the authority figures. So I'm suggesting that multiple generations of narcissistic media mind control has turned people into compliant sheeple.
I want to say something here about the term gaslighting because it's not always understood in the sort of rich sense that it should be. Um, we take it from the I guess late 1940s award act. I think it was an Academy Award winning thriller, a film called Gaslight, which shows how a very charming scoundrel seduces and tries to basically drive insane his beautiful young wife in order to get her fortune. And it's good, nice film to watch. But that's where the term gaslight comes from. But there's a larger meaning to it, or even a larger background to it. And I was reading about this in connection with the poet Edgar Allan Poe and novelist and storyteller Edgar Allan Poe from Baltimore, my hometown. He's buried here. Um, Poe apparently, like many of his contemporaries, suffered from, you might say, the environmental poisoning of gaslight. That is to say, beginning in the 1820s, 1830s, 1840s, the predominant form of lighting in houses, the first lighting, permanent lighting that people had, street lighting and inside house lighting, was gas lighting. They started running gas first. Before there was electricity, there was gas. And gaslight continued to be, short of candlelight, continued to be the predominant form of indoor lighting right on up to the advent of of Edison and use of the electric light bulb, which really didn't show up, I don't think, until like what, maybe the 1880s, 1890s. But Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and others, if you were in such an environment, because it turns out that the gaslight that was used in these closed, tight environments, especially in the wintertime, was toxic. and it caused a variety of very, very negative, sometimes even fatal health conditions. Some of them were diagnosed as consumption, which is tuberculosis, and headaches, neurasthenia. And Poe complained constantly of the headaches and the bad his interfere with his sleep because he was living in the midst of he was spending all this time writing his material with this gaslight burning in the back, heating and lighting where he lived, right there in Baltimore, Richmond,
Right,
other
right.
areas.
So he may have inadvertently, literally gaslit himself into. Maybe it influenced his work. I don't know. Does it have any sort of
Well, that's
hallucinatory?
yeah.
Mm,
I think he sort of insisted on that himself that he felt. I don't. I think he kind of sensed that the gaslight might be toxic because he said he could smell it sometimes. He said other people said they couldn't. It became something of a paranoid subject for him, but he wasn't the only one. We have French writers of the exact same period, Flaubert and others, who complain about the effect of the gaslight that was being used in the first modern indoor heating and lighting was gas, and it was not done well, and there was a lot of leakage, and just the exposure to it itself created all kinds of toxemia in people that was probably misdiagnosed as infectious disease. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's important to understand about the term gaslight. It has a much longer history than simply
sure.
I guess it would be 1949
And it
classic
became
film.
like it kind of got grafted into this self-help area probably in like the 90s or something, and then the internet recently has brought it back, and it was the word of the year for Webster's Dictionary 2022. And
Oh,
it's not just
really?
lying. Yeah, it's not because that's how many people were looking it up. So it's not merely lying, it's lying to somebody when they know you're lying and you know they know, but the lie
Who
is going to
who
pass.
designated it? Who designated it word of the year?
I think it was Webster's Dictionary, their online dictionary.
So they're admitting. Now, I don't know how they collect their data. I don't know what they base that on, but they're admitting that this word has now entered the popular culture. And if you use it out on the street or at the bar or anywhere else in casual conversation, people are likely to know exactly what you mean. And they're not going to say, "What do
Yeah,
you mean?" But they're going
and
to
the
know.
purpose of it is that when somebody is telling you that what you perceived isn't so, and you know it is so, and by force of will or authority or position, if you're not able to challenge it long term, if challenging it causes cognitive dissonance or friction, and you just lie along to get along, you become apathetic. And I think that's one of the reasons why the media gaslights us and creates confusion as a matter of routine, because they want us to be helpless and in need of somebody to sort out reality for us, because when we try it on our own, we run into resistance, we get contradicted, etc.
Uh, but there also had to be there has to be this will, really, a will, an affirmation among the masses themselves that they want to be a part of this narrative, to belong to something. And I don't think they care whether it's true or not. And that comes back to that big movie production in Marfa, Texas, Giant with James Dean and Rock Hudson. Everyone, I mean, talk about East Palestine, Ohio. Marfa, Texas was probably about the same size. Just some dirt water town there in West Texas. But I guess oil was around, and that's where the money was being made in oil. But I think the oil might have dried up in Marfa. And here was this movie production company coming through. And this was a classic. Movies have been made about this. Movies about the making of movies. Really, seriously, there have been movies made about the subject of big movie production company moves into small town and takes over.
Yeah, well,
That's actually the
they
basis
get
for
really behind the scenes. I mean, I watched that Wes Anderson
right.
movie Star City, and the main character is based on Kubrick, and it's kind of showing you how everything is fake. But one of the things about that movie, and it goes back to what we were talking about with aliens, is that they have these individuals praying the Lord's Prayer, but instead of Our Father who art in heaven, it's Dear Alien who art in space. They
I've
pray
seen that.
to the
Yeah, I saw
alien.
that. What sounds like something out of I don't know Doctor Who or where would I have heard that before? Something like prayer to. Oh well, I'm thinking of that scene from George Lucas's film THX 1138 with Robert Duvall.
Oh yeah, that was George Lucas's first film. It came out on a 311. We had looked at
Yeah,
that one.
called. There's a scene in that called The Confession, where he gets into a confession booth with an AI bot. It's great.
Right, it's an
And he's
AI
based.
Jesus. That's right, and it.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my, they just use AI to extrapolate Jesus's face from the Shroud of Turin, and yeah,
Well, now you get into that. I mean, that's another one where true believers. Well, you wonder if it's worth the time going down a rabbit hole like the Shroud of Turin
I
because.
call them low information believers. If you still believe in relics, I'm sorry, but you're at a lower level of discrimination than is
Right.
required to understand the world
I would.
stage.
I wouldn't resist the opportunity to elevate the level of discourse by saying, well, what we have from about the same time or a little later is something called Lorenzo Valla's exposure of the forgery of the ages, the so-called donation of Constantine, if I can refer to that, because that was one of the most important. It was like a sort of a turning point in from the medieval world into modernity. Basically, the papacy claimed title to Rome and the surrounding territories from the Emperor Constantine to the Pope. Supposedly, the Emperor Constantine deeded the city of Rome and the surrounding areas, Campania maybe, or Umbria, some of the areas around the so-called papal states, to the Pope in Rome in something called the Donation of Constantine's document, a relic, an artifact. And we really don't hear much about this document at the time of Charlemagne, right? Just to date it in your mind historically. Traditionally, coronation of Charlemagne as Augustus in the West by the Pope is at Christmas Day 800 AD. We're talking, and this is the earliest that we could date the donation of Constantine. But around about the year 1420, 1430, comes an Italian scholar, brilliant in Greek and Latin and everything else, named Lorenzo Valla. And he says, look at this. He says, the language in this document is bogus. This is a forged document. And he basically proves from the language itself that the document is a
Mm.
shitty forgery. It's a bad
Right.
forgery.
That's a good way to do it. You could analyze was this the syntax at the time, and that's a perfect analogy. A forgery that changes the way people see an event is the same thing as a relic. It's basically false evidence. It contains a loaded premise. Like the Shroud of Turin presumes that Jesus not only existed, but that he transcended in some kind of spectacular light show that somehow X-rayed himself onto the blanket. I mean, that is a loaded object. It's like a loaded question. It's like that relic doesn't have any logical connection to this supposed event. You have to establish that first.
Oh, you know what the true believers will say now. You know it's true, and I have read. Oh my God, I've read their articles in the archaeology journals because I got into it. What the true believers will say is, radiocarbon dating validates our dating of this relic, this cloth, to approximately first century A.D. or something along those lines. They'll fall back on the validity of radiocarbon dating. Of course, radiocarbon dating, number one, is notoriously inexact. You actually have to take a piece of organic material. It doesn't work on rocks or stone. There's got to be some carbon in there. Organic material. It's got to be organic material, and you got to basically burn it first. And in point of fact, if an artifact has been in a fire, I'm told that that can seriously distort the reading you get from an attempt to date by radiocarbon dating. So that whole you go down that rabbit hole. Well, how old is this thing really? And then there's some who attribute it to Leonardo da Vinci. I wouldn't be surprised. He probably was creating. I bet you Da Vinci was creating convincing artifacts for the church on a regular basis.
Interesting
One way to
speculation
make a
there,
living.
really. If you think about it, just like NASA creates their religious imagery, their fake space
Oh
photos of
yeah.
heaven, you had to be right about this. The artists that were recruited to do the church propaganda and its imagery and sell it all, they must have created these artifacts. You're absolutely right. They must have staged all the theater.
Well, it would call into question a lot of the classics of Greek and Latin literature as well. Some of who people think really were cribbed by Petrarch and his contemporaries in the 14th century, 15th century Italy, that they sort of reverse engineered the myth of the Roman world and the Greco-Roman Catholics classics. That's a whole nother argument. You know how authentic or how real is any of that history? But man, there was a point I was going to make and I just lost it. Something in response to what you said.
Well,
Go ahead. Go back
some
to
of the
what.
fakery of the artifacts and the like Da Vinci and others, where their role is to help substantiate the mythology. Like this
Yeah.
proves this
Well.
story.
Right. Right. And we've got that. I think about Joseph Smith. And I'm going to offend a lot of LDS people out here, Mormons, because I have read a couple of books about Joseph Smith, a couple
Well,
biographies, and
you won't offend Tim Ballard because he has been excommunicated by the Mormons for his human trafficking
oh,
and sex
what? Wait a
abuse.
minute, are you serious? Because he made that movie?
When he made the movie, the women that he brought with him in real, well, the movie's based on him, but in real life, the women that he brought with him on these child trafficking rescuing operations were pretending to be his wife. And to pretend to be his wife, he insisted they sleep in the same beds. So there's a scandal around him. Then the producers on video grabbing an underage girl. So no, the whole thing has gone down in flames. And on top of it all, Ballard has been excommunicated, according to some
I
recent thing.
wonder if he's going to turn out to be a pedo himself. I hate to say that. That's really going a little
Hey, look,
bridge too far,
he's
isn't
one
it?
of the guys that started the whole Wayfair. He promoted the Wayfair conspiracy theory about children
Well,
being
the Wayfarer,
transported.
yeah, Amazing Polly was looking at the Wayfarer, and also Balenciaga. Eddie Bravo was really getting to Balenciaga. I was listening to Eddie Bravo the other night, thinking about, wow, it would be great. You two should have a go at it, but arguing about because he really is on the same. He's on the same page as us in a lot of different areas. I've been listening to some of his podcasts, and he really is on board with most of what we contend about the fakery going on and
Eddie
everything else.
Bravo? Oh
But
yeah, I don't get the idea that Eddie Bravo's an insider. I think he's looking just as we are. And I remember he was really
look
trying.
into it. That's the name of his series. Is look into it.
Yeah, he's on
So
Rofkin.
that's
He's one
him.
of the reasons I subscribe to Rofkin. He's got a
And
good
let
show.
me tell you why I got a soft spot for Eddie Bravo because in addition to being a superb grappler and instruction in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he knows how to do verbal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, how to take your back without you even knowing it. I listened to him do this to David Icke one time. It was beautiful. Um, Eddie was on there with Sam Tripoli and one other guy, and it was kind of funny. And David Icke was going on and on and on, and finally Eddie Bravo just hits him with it like, well, by the way, David, what do you think about the Apollo moon landing? And Ike just first, Ike, it was like a deer in the headlights. If you watch the video of it, it's like a deer in the headlights. And then he says, well, to tell you the truth, I hadn't really looked into it. This is a guy who's telling us about reptilians, and there's actually David Icke has spun ufology
Yes,
myths
David Icke did a whole
back in
piece
the day.
on who built the moon. One of his books.
Hollow moon. Is
Yeah,
he an advocate of a hollow moon?
yep. He says the moon's hollow,
Yeah, right.
that it actually came down here and it dumped a bunch of water on us. It's hollow like an egg now, but the oceans came from the moon.
Right, right.
He's
Is
been
that
there.
he plays title lock? So it was so beautiful because I got to tell you, I have always kind of, to me, David Icke is perhaps a more tolerable Alex Jones in the sense that he's a little bit easier to listen to than Alex Jones, but he's still full of shit. He's always been full of shit. He never called out the TV fakery of 9/11. Never. He could have. He could have never, So David Icke is. I know he's made a good living. He's living here on the Isle of Wight. Probably got a nice estate there. Working. He worked in mainstream media, and then basically he kind of created his own kind of mainstream conspiracy media. Like Jesse Ventura is another one. Or Alex Jones. They're kind of like grifters. They're big time grifters, but I loved the way Eddie Bravo kind of like just really slid that in there, and it so exposed David Icke and how full of shit he is. Because seriously, David, you expect us to believe that with all the talk you've done over the decades about interdimensional figures and reptilians, yeah, lizard people, um, all that talk, and you never once questioned whether everybody, we're out here screaming, "Hey, this Apollo stuff is fake," but the ISS is fake, and outer space is fake, and maybe wonder is he even? And now I think what's happened is if you cornered Ike now and asked him about flat Earth, he'd probably have a whole rap prepared now. You know what I'm saying? Now he'd be prepared with what his new party
Well,
line was
yeah,
going
he's
to be. But
definitely. If you ask me, he's it's like I think he was a goalie in soccer. Maybe he was a soccer player. Then he got into politics. He was in Green Party. He was kind of an insider with the Green Party, and I thought, okay, he's somewhat trustworthy.
right,
He had an
right.
interesting take on everything. Um, Very new agey, I would say. I like his views on synchronicity, but he's more of a mystic than anything. And he will never let go of the solar system or the heliocentric paradigm because his entire cosmology is based on it. He transcended, he saw the Earth, he saw Sirius, where the reptiles come from on their UFOs. So it's like his whole personal story and his narrative is really kind of built into this idea that maybe man was actually created by aliens. He's an ancient alien guy at his core. So there's no way he can just hit the reboot, unplug, and start over again. I think he's stuck.
I'd have to see the specific psychedelic that he took to get to that point.
Ayahuasca.
Like it reminds me a little bit of Max Egan is another one who suddenly had visions, and I'm thinking, dude, you just tripped on some bad shit, come on, really, what these guys come up with.
It's a real sad attempt
I,
to
they,
rebrand where, oh, I had this psychedelic experience and now I see things differently. Yeah, Max Egan said, I've seen it all, the mud flood and the earth, and it's flat and it's
oh
round at the same
yes,
time.
yeah.
A total breakdown, but it was fake. It wasn't a real
But
breakdown.
what he didn't see? He didn't see that another grifter named Ken O'Keefe was out there ripping him off for thousands of dollars. You want to check out that story? Ken O'Keefe started talking about the Palestinians because Ken O'Keefe apparently he went over there on the Gaza boat lifters. He was on one of those boats, and for some reason the Mossad left him alone. The Israelis left him alone, and it's almost like he had like a guest pass to everywhere on I don't know the West Bank of Gaza was over here, and then he started using it to raise money. I got a whole bunch of people to raise money for. Oh, what were they going to do? I wonder if Robert David Steele was involved in this too. They were going to take it all to court. They were going to create a world citizenship. Yes, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I think it was called World Citizen. Yes. World Citizen. Max Egan and Ken O'Keefe got behind this idea of world citizen. You're going to pay taxes. Instead of paying taxes to your government, you're going to put it in escrow. This reminds me of the scheme you were talking about with was it the Nasara Gassara people or the Q people who were saying don't bother paying your gas and electric
Oh
bill
yeah,
this
if you're in
year.
Canada and you're a loyal servant of Queen Didelot, you don't
Oh
have to pay your
right.
bills. You just got to tell
Well,
them.
Roger Stone. Wait a minute now. Didn't Roger Stone do a cameo for her?
Yeah, Roger Stone did a cameo, but he claims he doesn't remember. He was just reading the lines, and it was 160 bucks. You can get Roger Stone to endorse anything.
Oh, I'll bet he cashed that in. I'll bet he did. You got all kinds of grifters, Roger Stone, he's so cheap
Now you
ass.
say
You think
grifters,
he wouldn't?
like these are individuals who just found a niche in alt media,
It's a
and they're
culture. No,
see,
it's a culture of grifting.
I,
They reinforce each other.
see, but
Like I said,
are they worse grifters than the mainstream media? Is a Max Egan or an
well,
Alex Jones
see,
different from an
you
Anderson
know,
Cooper or a Rachel Maddow? Are they any different?
what makes it worse to me is they know better. Do you understand? A lot of the people who are in so-called mainstream media, are so delusional that you could make the case credibly That's just so stupid. They don't know any better, or they're brainwashed. Maybe I don't know that I buy that
Insulated,
either.
insulated is a good word actually, and that does happen. You
Right.
do have people who become very insular because they stay within their little elite group and they have no reason to leave it, and that's all by design. I do think that most of these teleprompter readers are as clueless from however high up they get. The more clueless they are, the more useful they are. I don't think it would behoove them to know the truth. They would have to consciously lie, and it would be a harder sell. I think they believe what they're actually saying. I think the most brainwashed people in the world.
How could you indict Brian Williams of NBC, MSNBC, whatever, for lying at all those different times when he was just reading from a script? In his mind, he was just reading from a script. He doesn't know any better. Is he responsible if the script is a pack of lies? Like with this Middle East, this stuff going on right now in Gaza. Really, is any one of these talking heads you see on TV, or Fox, CNN, PBS, wherever, they're just reading from a script. You know that's going to be their defense.
Well, in your
You know, if
opinion,
there were,
has auto hoaxing been 100% vindicated?
oh, empirically, it converges on 100%. It's been vindicated so many times, over and over and over. So much so, here's what I say in response to that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me three times, four, or five, it means somebody loves to be fooled. And that's what you got. You got a population out here that just loves to be fooled, like tickle my fancy. Fool me again. I'd rather be fooled. It's like the guy in the Matrix movie
Cipher.
that says,
And the thing
is that
is,
who he is?
yeah, Cipher. And the thing is, when people, we say they love to be fooled, it's more like they capitulate to the pressure, so they experience less pain. So there's a difference between doing something because it feels good versus doing something because you avoid pain. And I think it's about emotional pain compliance and avoiding cognitive dissonance. And that's where people are caught up in this whole thing. I think people are trauma bonded with mass media, and they will always default to its lies over their own perceptions. It's sad, but that's where people are at.
A lot of it is the tyranny of ease and convenience as well. Um, they're handed a smart device to carry around and tell them what to think. Isn't it so much easier to live that way? I mean, let the AI make the decision. You want to buy a new car, or well, nobody's going to be buying any new cars. They'll probably be like renting Google cars. Who knows what? But you want to make this purchase or do this or that year that or here you have experiencing these symptoms. Let's run it through the AI and see what the AI says, because the AI has the answer. Actually, in THX 1138, they show that as well. And Rollerball too, it has that kind of the AI has basically taken over
Yeah,
a
that's a
lot of
reoccurring theme. You're
functionality.
right. That's an interesting point, though. 1971's THX 1138 is really about the computer that takes over for human governance. And this is a theme that's been projected onto the future since really the late 60s, early 70s. That's part of Space Odyssey, HAL 9000. And I found some pretty interesting breakdowns suggesting that HAL 9000 might just be a modern interpretation of the demiurge concept, if not the literal demiurge. Like if this world does have some kind of alien intelligence governing it all, it's Hell 9000. It's this AI they're introducing that will essentially take the place of God as an authority.
I wonder if that's the meaning of the original Latin reference Deus ex machina, the god of the machine, which we're told was really a sort of artistic reference to a plot device in Greek drama, where just in order to explain something away, you have the gods intervene. God in the machine, God out of the machine, or God in the machine. But yeah, and the thing is, it's really it's overhyped up the yin yang. First of all, there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. The reason why I can say this is because I hold a degree in computer science from the Johns Hopkins University Whiting School of Engineering Applied Physics Lab. from the late 90s when most of these language models were being developed. And so I was kind of there at the creation of these things. And everyone used to laugh their asses off every time they heard somebody use the phrase artificial intelligence. We called it machine learning. You wrote programs that basically calibrated machines so you could increase their powers of judgment for the ability to read a dot matrix, for example. Like, distinguish between a 3 and an 8, perceptrons and so forth. It was about grading machines, instructing machines, so that they could take over human processes. And the idea of it being called art, we knew that the phrase artificial intelligence was nothing more than advertising PR hype, because there is plenty in artificial in it. Very little real intelligence. The only intelligence that's in it corresponds to the intelligence of the programmer who writes the code.
Would you say that they're
Otherwise, it can be
purposefully,
incredibly.
like they're purposefully mystifying it with the movies, with the predictive programming, and the way they talk about Musk
Oh,
too? Elon Musk is always saying it's the biggest threat. Look,
Spielberg.
they are mystifying it
Spielberg
for the
didn't
people who fall.
Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg. He took over for AI for Kubrick's movie. And what
Right,
I'm saying is,
right,
I'm
right.
pretty sure that the same people who fall for the Shroud of Turin are going to hit their knees and pray to the AI. Like, I think that this is,
The holy AI.
yeah,
Yeah,
they are
they're
going to,
gonna fall on their knees.
yep,
Right, right. You could do the sacraments, and well, the hand sanitizer will be a sacrament
yeah, the hand
out
sanitizer to
of
get rid
that.
of the COVID from the people who don't
Well,
believe
what?
the AI.
Yeah, what I'm saying is this, and when I see people go on about this, oh, Jews and Muslims in the Holy Land, I'm saying to myself, look, um, the World Health Organization was there on the West Bank and in Gaza and in Israel shooting everybody up with that serum. So don't even pretend. I mean, the COVID lockdowns, you think there were COVID lockdowns across the board in Palestine and Israel? Everybody was on board with the COVID mythology over there. Everybody. So, nobody was challenging it. And it was, so I don't really see. And look, here's the thing: what happened when? Remember the sequence of events. Osterholm comes on Joe Rogan and says, "Oh, we got a deadly pandemic," and then the next day the NBA cancels their season, and then the NHL cancels their season, and then blah, blah, one cancel it, and then a day or two later on Friday the 13th, Donald Trump declares a state of national emergency, and then the next thing you know, there's lockdowns and there's mask mandates and all this stuff is happening, right? So we've kind of been through, but people talk about a government shutdown. Well, wait a minute, we had an economic shutdown for like 6 months. For how long? In most states during that whole COVID panic. And what do they do? Now, if people want to forget, they want to forget, they want to forget. Number one, they canceled the walk along the Via Dolorosa that occurs every Easter or Good Friday in the Holy Land. I don't think that's ever been canceled since the Crusades. They canceled the Pope's benediction on Easter Sunday in St. Peter's Square. Can't have people gathering in St. Peter's Square when everybody's locked down
They canceled Mecca.
because
They canceled Mecca.
canceled the Hajj to Mecca. To Hajj to Mecca? How often in history has I don't think wars have ever caused the Hajj to Mecca to be canceled, and they shut down the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, put a fence around it so you couldn't get in there, shut it all down, shut it all. I'm thinking about this now with this business going on because I'm going to ask you if you think. Well, it's another question about the complete loss of tourism in Israel, but I'll get into that in a second. Um, but what I'm saying, the larger point I want to make here is, and then you had the I guess it was the Russian Orthodox Patriarch telling everybody they better get vaccinated, the Pope telling everybody they better get the shot. As far as I'm concerned, all those old religions have been swept away by this new. This was a grand
It
experiment to
was.
create a new
Uh,
global religion.
they all
The mass,
kneeled to COVID. It was COVID Akbar. They all kneeled down to
yeah,
this new devil
yeah.
construct because Gaia is the God construct, the globe, but COVID is a devil that the atheists believe in, and it shut everybody down. It was basically saying scientism's boss now, And I was like, wow, all the old traditional religions just capitulated to this silly cartoon.
Well, it's a new priest class, except they got white coats, you know. But it's just another priest class what they've done with the experts and bringing Fauci out there and
Yeah, think
oh
about the
here's my
significance of it. You say priest class. We're talking about priests with the power of life and death in their hands. They can save everybody or not. But we're talking about priests over billions of people, not just, segments of the populations or this religion or that religion, but the entire world basically sees astronauts as a form of high priesthood and these other scientists, these virologists, these vax creators are basically serving the same role. And so I think that their status in society is much higher than we'd like to think, just based on the fact that, yeah, they are in fact the mediators between man and the higher power.
and then there's the spinning globe cult. That really is a religion. There's no way anybody's basing that on observation. It's a cult.
It's a cult of
And
perverts, and they want to believe,
yeah,
and it.
cult of the curve. The cult of the curve. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a fisheye lens. I can see the curve. It doesn't matter if the P900 proves a vanishing point. No, no, no. I can see the curve. Those people are going to continue to see the curve because that's what's kind of in their mind. They're religiously they have faith in it that way. They can't risk giving that up.
Well, I've often referred to news benders that play about how they bend our reality by bending the news, and I think the curvature is part of that bending of everything that makes their false paradigm possible. I appreciate your call very much, Lynn. Great to catch up on what do you call this right now? Is this World War III yet? How many times have they already called World War III?
Well, like I'm saying, if you think that this is just a stunt that Benjamin Netanyahu pulled off to save his failing political career, consider the millions and millions of shekels that the Israelis are going to lose in tourism now that flights to Tel Aviv are shut down because of the situation. And ask yourself, he's willing to self-destruct, to do a controlled demolition of tourism, which is a major part of the Israeli economy. People aren't going to come there if they hear this stuff is going on. And what is he doing? That's how selfish. That's what a psychopath, this guy Netanyahu and the people around him. They're willing to sacrifice the Israeli economy just to, I don't basically wag the dog. That's what it is. It's a wag the dog. But anyway, that's
Yep.
just my.
Yeah, Wag the Dog. Shout out to Unit 303. And I think that's the case right now. It's Wag the Dog Media has been the standard operating procedure.
Well, there's money. There's a lot of money involved too. Don't minimize that. Money and power, control. That's what they really want. Sustainability is just coded language for predictability, which means controllability. All right, talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you for the call. Have a great night or day. All right, everyone, this is Infinite Plane SATURNDAY, 10/21/2023. Catching up with Lynn there. Covered a lot of ground. I see we have about 65 people on the main channel, a few others on the back channels. I upgraded. I want to say thanks to all of you who have been supporting the channel. I upgraded. We're now on 8 platforms. And probably starting tomorrow, we'll jump onto Rofkin Live as well if there's anybody who wants it there. Angst G says World War Infinity. Yeah, it's World War Infinity because it's perpetual. It's a cyclic thing. We talk about the number 40 and the 40 heads, and I think it may tie in, and I'll show you where I get at this from, to the idea of a generation. And these are generational psyops. Pre 9/11, terrible Ben Affleck movie comes out, Pearl Harbor. 9/11 happens. Oh, this is your Pearl Harbor, guys. It's all about putting things into your frame of reference. Not a coincidence that the Modern Warfare 3 came out the night before the attacks. It's all concerted. Now, let us continue. I have this quote here from, here we go, Lauren Boebert, and I think this is very relevant. There has been a moral decay in our country because too many of our leaders have traded the truth for a lie. Sometimes they're just honest. They have traded the truth for a lie. And it's absolutely true because there are people out there that or that we speak about here quite a lot, like Ben Shapiro, for example. You look at him, you think nice guy, harmless, little manlet, nothing to be afraid of. But after the 7th, after 10/7, which was Israel's 9/11 times 15. He's like 40 dead babies happened. Let's kill everybody else. War, war, war. I'm like, how did this guy just go from, kind of a calm social commentator to a war hawk, covering himself in dead baby blood, climbing on top of these piles of hypothetical dead kids in order to grandstand and attack those who don't conform as somehow part of the other side. This is from The Onion. So horny for this. Tweets official Israeli Twitter account with picture of dead civilians. And it does look like an official tweet. And it's absolutely true. This is actually what you'd call parody, although it's probably going to get pulled down for hate speech. But I could see Ben Shapiro tweeting this. So horny for this, and a bunch of, dead kids. And I did address some of the, because I've been saying fake dead kids' lives don't matter. The people making money, Lynn's right, follow the money. The fake dead kid industrial complex. These companies that are making simulation dolls for mass casualty drills, yeah, they're banking. And I looked at all these dead kids lined up on a sidewalk, all of their eyes closed, their mouths closed, peaceful, except they're covered in mud, presumably killed by bombs. And I'm like looking at these pictures and I'm like, okay, how are their eyes closed? As a former embalmer and longtime decedent transporter, one of the things that you learn right away is that your eyes open when you die. You lose the muscle tension. Your eyelids don't stay closed by themselves. And moreover, the dehydration and all that plays a part. So you can't just close them. They would need the plastic insert or super glue. As bad as it sounds, super glue. Was never my preference to use super glue because after a couple days you'd see tension return to the eyes. It looked kind of unnatural, and sometimes the super glue would create little flakes. I preferred to use the plastic insert, and it has that lotion that goes underneath the eyelid and it keeps it naturally calmly closed and it looks better. My point is, those dead kids all had closed eyes. Not possible unless they were embalmed. But they weren't embalmed. They're still wearing the clothes that they were wearing when they were supposedly killed. If they were embalmed, they would be in different new clothes. So the whole thing is just fake and phony. And you have people going along with it because they don't want to look at the screen. It's like, oh, look, dead kids. Oh, I can't look. That's horrible. Okay, well, you didn't look. So you can't claim to know what happened. But the way this thing works, and this is the philosophical crisis that we're in, people think, well, it's on the screen, so it's real. I don't have to look. I can just know that it's real. So you just assimilated some knowledge based on secondhand information presented to you that you didn't even look at. That's not being informed. It's the opposite. It's being misinformed. And the public at large is disinformed. That's just how it operates. It's a world of subjective beliefs, low information believers, the sea of irrelevance, and the only people making sense, because nobody's making sense if they're in it. The ones who know what's going on are above it and sworn to secrecy and are perpetrating this, but the only ones that make sense are the so-called conspiracy theorists far enough out on the fringe that we no longer take the bait on any of these atrocity stories. And I haven't taken the bait on any of these. I haven't, I was looking at this picture of these supposed dead kids and I'm like, I feel nothing. Because that is an animatronic. It's like Chucky from that movie. Like, I'm not feeling any kind of visceral sense of, oh, that's messed up. And when I watch people die, like on Twitter videos, they get shot and stuff, I feel it. I'm a human being. It's terrible. I don't like this stuff. But when I see the fake stuff, as a film critic, I see the special effects. As someone who was a film studies major and I was really into organic special effects, horror effects, etc., I looked at these things and I'm like, that's mass casualty props. But the public doesn't know because they're visually illiterate. And as Linda Curtis says, they live in Plato's cave. They do. They live in Plato's cave. And is there an exit? That's the thing. I feel like if you exit Plato's cave, well, I don't know if you even can anymore. Like off the grid doesn't even exist. But I kind of feel like the best you can do is just not pay attention to the shadows on the wall. I have no reason to leave. I don't think you can. I think it's a closed system. I think this is Mystery Science Theater. That the theater is our confinement. Turbo Nurbo says the 40 Babies will be performing at this year's Super Bowl. I thought it was going to be the Do Kids from Maui, that they were going to do some kind of laser show and rave dance with some like smoke effects, Disco Inferno or something. I didn't know what it was going to, I thought it was going to be that. And then maybe the Sandy Hook kids come out and sing a little bit. Gabby Petito drives by in a van with Brian Laundrie like honking the horn. Then the 40 Babies come out. Or Ben Shapiro comes out and he tosses the 40 heads against a prop wailing wall. That's actually one of the scenes that we're writing for South Pole. I'm sorry, Ben Shapiro. Yeah, Ben Shapiro is one of my favorite subjects when I look at the right, when I want to study where they're at. It's like, okay, this is the line they're sticking with. And I asked Lynn, have we been vindicated? Those of us who are calling stuff fake until proven real. And we have been, because one thing that's come up, and this has been across the board, people are recognizing you can't judge it real right away. That's the very definition of skepticism, suspending judgment. And if you have people in the news media saying, hey, you have to suspend judgment, I'm sorry, but you're going against the operating system. You're going against the way that the public is meant to interpret this stuff. Like, I don't think they want the public to be skeptic. They want you to be reliant on them to interpret the facts of your reality. Here's a really good find here. This is posted by King of Bertaria. 11 years ago, The Economist shows Hamas on a paraglider attacking Israel. And sure enough, this is from The Economist, January 4th, 2013. There are many, many examples of The Economist accurately predicting our future. We often talk about the winter solstice version of The Economist, where it has China, a new sharp power, and the new shape of Chinese influence. It's got this COVID ball like Earth. Look at this one, A Rough Guide to Hell. And it definitely has paragliders going into Israel. So has this scenario ever been talked about before? The people at The Economist knew something. By the way, Flattoberfest happened. I didn't go. Actually, it's today at Sam's Town Hotel Gambling Hall. I wanted to go, but flatflation, is that what hit it? The prices to get in way inflated. It was like 200. I heard it was like expensive tickets. I'm going to check the price right now. Maybe one of you have gone. If any of you have gone to this, or if you're there right now, $254. I think that's why I didn't go. Not knocking it. Let's see who was there. Dave Murphy, Greg Reese, Jason Lindgren, cool. Austin Whitsitt. Austin Whitsitt got arrested at Mount Rushmore for flat earthing in a national park or something. Jaron Campanella. Wonder if he talked about the ISS sightings that he recorded. But I would have gone for Chief Crow. 8 p.m. is still time if you can make it. It's going to be at Sam's Town Hotel and Gambling. Now I'm glad it's Flattoberfest and not True Earth Fest. I think there's been this tendency to run from flat and call it true. But I don't think you should capitulate. Like, for example, the term auto hoaxer was meant to stop people from calling things a hoax automatically. Good thing we didn't listen. Joined by Cheesy Cool, how do I get a wrench? I'll be handing out wrenches immediately after the live stream. If you want one, just comment. Dharma Queen says late again. I need to sign up for text alerts. Yeah, I haven't been able to send out the text alerts on a routine. So if you sign up at ips.monster, you will always get not only the live alerts, but you'll get the follow-up links to all the archives, as well as I upload the audio there as well. All right, moving on. Edgar Allan Poe, believe half of what you see and nothing that you hear. Now, I was going to juxtapose that against this. Elon Musk recently said, believe what you see, not what you're told. I mean, what do you think of that? Believe what you see, not what you're told. In the age of visual illiteracy, a deep faked society, visually illiterate, they can't tell the difference between real and fake, and you're saying believe what you see? Insane. I'm with Poe here. Half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Gaslighting. This is from New York Associated Press. This was an article from last year. Gaslighting, a behavior that's manipulating, grossly misleading, downright deceitful. Merriam-Webster 2022 word of the year. So, gaslighting is definitely a form of mind control. It's about invalidating the perception of somebody else and not giving them any kind of ability or recourse to challenge that. It's meant to lead to long term disassociation from reality, apathy. People enter into a dream world. This is what you see in a microcosm, I think, with destructive cults. And then you can kind of extrapolate to society writ large. What does it mean when we're all being hyper mediated through a doomsday cult's frame of reference that says that if we don't cut back on our consumption of dino juice, we're all going to die because the oceans are going to rise? Cheesy Cool says, my wife took my kids to see the Paw Patrol movie. My 3-year-old said they had to save the town from a meteor. Sorry for the spoilers. It's probably full of serious propaganda or symbolism, these Paw Patrol movies. I bet it's full of all kinds of occult Masonic stuff. Just so much brainwashing. They have to start when they're 3. But this is also interesting. So you're 3 years old, and now you know it's within the realm of possibility that a giant rock can come down and kill everybody. That the same type of rock that killed the dinosaurs, like all of my friends in the cartoons, the dinosaurs on my clothes, the dinosaurs on my wallpaper, yeah, they all got murdered by a big rock, and this big rock is going to come back soon. It's all programming. And it also presumes that we're in a heliocentric system with space rocks that can fall on us. It presumes that this entire thing has already been settled. It's settled science. It's kind of a way of just giving them the big picture. I wonder if it has a climate change message. Climate change is the real killer. Like it's a long-term agenda. It doesn't require evidence, and it allows the power elite to regulate everybody unanimously. They don't have to produce anything. Like they never actually had to fake ocean levels rising. The best they can do is scapegoat, like Maui. Yeah, climate change did that. But meteors require special effects. I'm not saying they're not going to do it. If they can fake a nuke, they can fake a falling rock. All right, moving. Oh, dinosaurs in space, Angst G says. That reminds me, there's a Chief Crow song, Dinosaurs in Space. Maybe he'll play it live. Can somebody tweet Chief Crow or anybody who's there at the Flat Earth Conference? Request Dinosaurs in Space. Okay, this is the image that Donald Trump posted at Truth Social, and it's literally him next to Jesus. And Jesus is a bit taller than Trump here. How tall is Trump? 6'5" or something? I never thought of Jesus as being like, basketball player tall. Must have been a tall cross. But this is shameless, tapping into this, where the president himself is saying, yeah, Jesus is like me, and I've seen some apologists saying, no, he's just saying that Jesus is with him. Right. That's all he's saying. All right, moving on. Turbo Nurbo says Jurassic on the Jam Jams. Well, dinosaurs in space are a thing. Dinosaurs on the moon do, supposedly, allegedly, there are dinosaur bones on the moon. Elon Musk tweeted this a few days ago, and I think it's notable. It has a man in a mask in Vegas, and he said, at the risk of saying something controversial, Fallout New Vegas was a great game. Why is Elon Musk making a reference to Fallout, to nukes in Vegas? Not sure. Just pointing it out. All right, this is Infinite Plane Saturday. We were just talking about a few things. Paragliders were predicted to go into Israel by these Hamas militants on this Economist cover from 2013. Here's a related article. Woman slams selfish paragliders who made her think Hamas were invading Doncaster. This is just another example of how the auto believers are easy to trigger. That they can be convinced something is real and it will infect their worldview, and now they can be put into a state of terror. That's something innocuous. I mean, we saw this. 2020, we lived through it. You saw people acting with extreme paranoia. Somebody coughs, you think they're going to die. The snitching was off the charts at the very beginning. The snitching was insane. Okay, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I just want to bring it up one more time because what happened in Israel on 10/7 was 15 9/11s. 9/11 scripting. Top secret Hamas documents were found on the terrorists that showed that they were targeting elementary schools and youth centers and told to seize hostages. Their secret plan surviving the attack, just pointing it out, just super believable. We talked about this already, and this is why I said if you're not auto hoaxing, you're basically going to be duped. You're going to be rushed to make a judgment about something you don't have enough information for. New York Times twice altered Israel strike kills hundreds in hospital headline. I think what eventually came out of that is it was determined that the hospital itself wasn't hit. It was a parking lot. And the idea that there were 500 people there is laughable. It's insane. They throw out these big numbers. And look, that's another aspect to this quote gaslighting concept. If you're trying to confuse people, you will want to give them conflicting accounts all the time. This means that they have to concede at some point. I don't have enough info. I have to wait for them to tell me. They drag it out, they throw out misinformation, and eventually the truth comes out. They're trying to condition people to wait to be told. Don't do your own research. Illusion Warfare posted this. The word PSYOP has become a joke, used incorrectly every time I see it. Now, this is an interesting point here. The son of Hamas's leader blows a whistle. They are a globalist PSYOP group. And his point here is that these words are being used to diffuse the real truth about the matter. And they're feeding a lot of these counter mainstream narratives to truthers. And truthers are like the right wing equivalent of woke. They're still spoon fed whatever they're supposed to believe. And they're not any closer to the truth than the blue pill people. In fact, quite the opposite. What do we have here? Okay, a lot of strange instances of 40. Evolvement posted this. 40 more schools and colleges have been identified as having collapse-prone concrete. We were talking about the 40 baby heads. Madonna 40th anniversary tour. And I think we even connected possibly Madonna and this Whore of Babylon archetype to the Barbie movie where all those babies are being killed at the very beginning. But anyway, the 40 is standing out here. Then we have this. 3 dead, 40,000 homes without power. This is a storm hit Britain, 40,000. A few more examples of this. As if a storm hit, more than 40 Italian health workers have died since crisis began. Just another example of the constant reference to the number 40 showing up. Interesting connections here. We've just been kind of throwing this around. What could it mean? Why 40? Okay, so Greta Thunberg sent an image of herself, I stand with Gaza. And along with this picture, of herself in this sign that says "I stand with Gaza," she included a photo of a miniature octopus, like a kraken type thing. Anyway, she said something like "I stand with Gaza," and someone said to her, "The blue octopus is an anti-Semitic trope. I deeply hope this is a weird accident, but the prominent placement is concerning." So apparently, Greta Thunberg's toy octopus is anti-Semitic. First, I've heard of this. I would not have made that connection. But she subsequently responded with, "It has come to my knowledge that the stuffed animal shown in my earlier post can be interpreted by some as a symbol for anti-Semitism, which I was completely unaware of. The toy in the picture is a tool often used by autistic people as a way to communicate feelings." I didn't know that part of it. I know so Greta is autistic and she uses the octopus to communicate her feelings. So is she communicating anti-Semitism? But whatever it is, it's another one of these things, another examples of these like secular blasphemies, like the bowl cut hate symbol, AOK symbol. Used to be 666, now it's I hate Jews or whatever. Unbelievable. I'm not going to extrapolate anything more from this, like the whole Kraken symbolism. This is not anything other than um, a broad brush here. Everything is anti-Semitism. Give me a break. Like the word hate. You know how many hate crimes are just absolutely manufactured, fake anyway? Let's do some more 40s. At 40 years, Prophet Muhammad had resorted to spending a whole month in the cave for his usual retreat. There's another 40. Another one here. Why is 40 significant in Judaism? The period of years represents the time it takes for a new generation to arise. You can also derive the word quarantine. I think you can get 40 from that. It comes from 40 days or something along those lines. So there's something in here with these repeated references to 40. Not quite sure what yet, but it's there. Here's a political cartoon. How dare you use plastic bags? We need to save the world. It's Greta Thunberg with a Palestinian Free Palestine flag, and she's chasing down a Hamas soldier with a bag full of Israeli babies. But yeah, he used a plastic bag, not sustainable. Huge hypocrite here. You have to remember, 57 million tons of PPE have been added to the oceans since 2020. 57 tons. And the people who believe in this stuff, the people who wear the PPE, are also the believers in climate change. Like, I will make an allowance of a millimeter. The ocean levels may have risen 1 millimeter, but it's only because of the 57 million tons of PPE, because of people like Greta Thunberg. So much to cover here. Here's another interesting one. Here you have Hakeem Jeffries, who happens to have Barack Obama's birthday. Hakeem Jeffries is talking about Jim Jordan, and we're looking at this Speaker of the House race and all this stuff. He calls Jim Jordan a, quote, clear and present danger. Jim Jordan, a clear and present danger, apparently because he's a MAGA terrorist, among other things, which is all true. But the point of it here is a clear and present danger is a Tom Clancy that predicted 9/11. Breaking moments ago, Hakeem Jeffries just spoke about the upcoming vote for the Speaker of the House. He called Jordan a MAGA extremist and reached out to the moderates. Let me play this clip here.
To end as we know it. He wants to end Medicare as we know it. Doesn't believe that President Biden was elected in 2020. That's disrespectful to the American people. Jim Jordan wants to impose a nationwide abortion ban, and he is the poster child for MAGA extremism.
There you have it, the poster child for MAGA extremism. But he says we have a clear and present danger. One other thing, a clear and present danger was actually being played in the audiobook format on the International Space Station on 9/11. It was being listened to by the only American on board at the time. And when he watched, this is his own account, from the ISS, when they saw 9/11 happen, they said, oh, this is a strange coincidence. It's pretty much what's happening in the book right here. Clear and present danger.
Wants to impose a nationwide abortion ban, and he is the poster child for MAGA extremism. We are saying to our traditional...
When they say MAGA extremism, what do they mean? Like, I think the extreme part of MAGA is, I guess it's the January 6er types, not the JFK coming back types. The white nationalists, I guess, would play into this a little bit. The Nick Fuentes types, who don't say MAGA, but they mean MAGA. That it's all the same thing. MAGA-ism is the antipode of progressivism. You know, one of them is about the future, and the other is about this idealized past. These are competing utopian schemes. But listen to him say, quote, a clear and present danger. That's a 9/11 reference.
Republican colleagues, good men and women on the other side of the aisle, in the attachment to the extremist Jim Jordan, and join with Democrats in finding a bipartisan...
Peter W. says, not wanting to kill babies is extremism. Too funny. Yeah, he wants to stop that. He's an extremist. But it's all in how they word things. Because for them, the whole issue is about bodily autonomy, and they've made it synonymous with controlling lives. So it's not even about abortion itself. That word is almost a red herring. Not that the pro-life people have a real clue. Most of them are just tools and a voting block. Have they done anything? Have they stopped anything? Have they changed anything? I don't think so. Now take a look at this. Biden pops up with this weird chin thing. I don't know if you all saw it, but if you turn the picture upside down, it kind of looks like a frog, but he's got these lumps on his chin. Liz Kronkin posted, here's a perfect example how the mainstream is gaslighting you. If there's any evidence that Putin is using a body double, they treat it like a serious claim. However, if Biden pops up with balls on his chin that grew overnight, and you call it a body double, they call you a conspiracy theorist. Don't believe your lying eyes. Yeah, exactly. Great points here. This is from Newsweek, and they're saying Joe Biden's chin in Israel video sparks conspiracy theory. Yeah, he's got these balls on his chin. Like it looks like some kind of liquid dripped down and settled, but in two different spots here. And it looks very strange. I don't know what to make of it. But some people have said it's a body double. Like, why is that even an extraordinary claim? We've seen his body double. We've seen the body double of Kamala Harris. But a lot of people are looking at this and saying, yeah, it's a deep fake. And if you say that, you are, of course, a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're an extremist. The extremists to me, though, are the people who fall for the propaganda and act accordingly, who get provoked. Like, I don't know if it's real, but some guy apparently thought that the global jihad day was real, so he went out and stabbed a Muslim, which I think is probably fake. Here's a pretty good one. 2 actresses caught red-handed. If you look on the top of the screen, you have a couple of Palestinians with AK-47s. And if you look below, you have a couple of, I guess, Palestinian victims leaving a hospital. Are they warriors, soldiers, or mourning victims? It's the same pair. 2 different costumes. How do you explain that? They're getting twice the pay. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello, Tim. It's 5. I just want to make a quick comment on the balls on the chin.
Yeah, Joe Biden. Is that a body double, or is it some kind of a mask failure? What do you think?
I think if we talked about this years ago. If you have a smaller sized face, you can wear a bigger sized mask. So someone with like a giant head like me, I could never be Eddie Munster unless you cast everybody else 7 feet tall around me or, use some kind of production. So this guy has a smaller face than the mask. It was really hot on his flight. I mean, he's in friggin' Israel, right? Isn't that like practically, the Middle East? So it was probably like a nice brisk 102, and the glue around your chin comes off, and it usually, because you sweat a lot by the sides of your mouth, that loosened up the glue first, and the center of the chin, like where someone's cleft would be, that holds on to the chin the most because it has the least amount of sweat glands. So the same effect could be seen when he had that weird back of the neck picture that he scratched the back of his neck and it looked like, like a piece of leather flapping in the wind.
Yeah, I could see that. So
that's
okay.
all I wanted to say. Now, listen, I don't know if it is wearing a mask or what. Personally, I think it's not the same guy as it was in, like, 1987. The earlobe. And, I mean, he kind of has the same eyebrow curve as the 1980s Joe. But that could also be because it's a total mask made from a life mask.
You mentioned head size. Head size is huge. And the fact of it is, the present day Joe Biden's skull shape is different than Vice President
Well,
Joe.
As he would say, I had something with my head, and they had to cut my head open and put it out on the table, and then, whatever, never mind. So that's how he would explain that.
Right. Well, I looked at that and thinking, okay, you could put a lot of people into a Joe Biden mask, but the original Joe Biden's skull, I don't know. I don't see the matchup there. But
anyway. I mean, anybody with a normal eye socket could be Andre the Giant. If you went to my friends in California and they shaved your head bald and shaved your eyebrows off, and they sat there with the new, 3D scans and shit, they basically put you inside a Madame Tussauds skull. And the inside of the mask would be the exact imprint of the external dimensions of your face. So that mask would fit like a glove for you alone. So to know that they could do this, I mean, do you really think the U.S. government doesn't have equal, if not better, tech? Now, I'd also like to prove one thing. There's a TikTok going around with a girl who looks like a movie star, and she pulls the mask off, and it's another girl underneath. Do you ever see that video?
I haven't seen that one yet, but I'll take a look.
She puts both of her hands in the mask and stretches it off and pulls it off, and she's a different girl on it. She looks like a hot, gorgeous model, and it's fake because if you watch the video, when she finally pulls it off her head, the hair disappears from the mask. So what you're actually watching is somebody is sitting there with a green screen colored dishwashing glove material mask with no form, no shape, no definition. And they pull it off, the hair, everything is done off CGI. So it makes it look like, oh my God, but all they did was, this was like generation 1 of deepfakes, where they actually had the green screen to target it in the area. Like many people say about the plane with the chroma key. You know what I mean? On 9/11.
Yeah,
so there you go.
We could say, I mean,
imagine if 9/11 happened today. Nobody would be able to tell anything.
It's almost a cliche.
Have a great day, my friend.
Yeah, Alex Jones used to say that the elite have a technology that's like 40 years above what we have, and it's like, I don't think it's true in terms of space. Technology or anything like that, but in terms of like media.
Alex Jones also coined my favorite phrase, or. So there you go. Unlimited possibilities, which is 5
that needs to go on a
words
bumper sticker, or and then put Infowars.com. I'd like that one. I'd put it on my car.
I would too, probably.
Hey, thanks for the call.
And Beetlejuice, the one from Stern. I usually tune him in for words of wisdom. So anyway, have a great day, Timmy.
Awesome. Have a great
day.
All right, that's 5 minutes of fame. All right, let's see what we're talking about. Leo Biddle says, I suspect we're being shown these doubles for a reason. It's pretty mainstream. But are we being shown them? Some of these things are, I guess we are more or less, but it wasn't like it was served to us by the mainstream. We've been digging at this since 2018. We've been digging at the masking of actors playing multiple roles since before Nipsey died. It's just now that it's become kind of loud, the media has to get in front of it. Kind of like they did with the flat earth topic. They ignore, they attack, they laugh at it, but eventually they have to co opt it to prevent it from going any further. And now they can pretty much monopolize this particular conversation. Kind of reminds me, I saw something today. It was someone talking about clones. And I always thought that this clone thing was kind of, I don't know, what do you call it? Truth or bait. And I think the reason for it is you can distract people from masks. If people see masks, they might understand the infrastructure of fakery. But if they say, oh, that's a clone, they lose all credibility. But I've seen some talk about clones getting around, and it's usually celebrities. I notice that it's usually celebrities that are being used to push a lot of these guardrails. So, for example, you see something weird about some politician's face, and you're like, maybe it's some kind of a synthetic mask, a real technology that's known to be used by these agencies. But then you came across this idea, and you're like, oh, wait, no, it's a clone. Well, you've just been discredited.
Already started.
Back in the day, it used to cost 50,000. Who knows how much it costs now? If you ever notice a rapper first, everything's fine. Then something goes wrong. They get out of line. They end up in jail. They come back looking totally different. And it's up to us if we're gonna let them play in our face or if we're gonna go, that ain't him. And then speaking
The title of this one is Cloning is Real, Stay Woke.
of they cloned Tyrone, isn't Jamie Foxx a part of that?
He came out looking. They were like, "Where's the tattoo?"
Where's his tattoo on the back of his head?
They showed a picture of him.
He was in like McDonald's or Wendy's or
Yeah.
some damn where. It looked like the clone was just testing itself out. Like, yeah, all right, I'm out. Let's see what's
Public
going on.
appearance.
I'm happy to be in the world.
Now, Jamie Foxx was in They Cloned Tyrone. Now, again, I don't believe in clones except for one. I'm pretty sure that Aaron Haywood 4.0 is not a perfect clone, but rather a discarded leftover from a failed attempt at cloning Michael Jordan. So some kind of bad batch of cloning materials resulted in Aaron Haywood 4.0. All right, let's continue. And reverse history says, cue the Halloween synth horror music. Yeah, exactly.
It seemed like the clone was literally testing himself out. But my thing is, where was the tattoo in the back of his head? And it just makes you wonder, like, do they do this shit to, like, play with us, to, like, see if we know, to see if we still dumb, to see how many of us are dumb, to see how many of us are brainwashed so they can know how many more to continue to brainwash?
Interesting questions. Whatever you think about that. They Cloned Tyrone brought a lot of this up. And if you haven't seen that movie, it's the perfect amalgamation of Truman Show, Westworld, Dark City, and I think we could probably throw in a few other, but for the most part, it takes this idea of the Truman Show reality in a totally controlled environment, a mind-controlled population, and mixes it with this almost like a science experiment, like underground, subterranean military bases, spying on people, testing out meat. In fact, it reminds me of this other movie. It was called Josie and the Pussycats, about music being used to mind control the youth. Same thing. There's some interesting scenes where it has this type of music playing. These guys are fighting. They switch the song and they start hugging. If you haven't seen it, They Cloned Tyrone. Jamie Foxx. It came out in the wake of these rumors that he had died and had been cloned. And my contention on it is that it ties into something else. That Tyrone is a way of referencing, I think, the spate of BLM martyrs, starting with Tyree Nichols, but going back to Trayvon Martin. And of course, Trey Tyre or Trey, these anagrams, all reference, I think, the same basic myth having to do with Hiram Abiff. We'll get back into that later, but Jamie Foxx is just one of these characters that is interesting because, again, he's in a movie about being cloned, but there's rumors that he's a clone before the movie comes out. And it's all intentional, it's all marketing. Noel said, my suspicions that these huge shill accounts posting about the masks are still peddling Pizzagate narratives. Oh, he's noticing the people who are yeah, that's true. A lot of the people who are popularizing a lot of these ideas that they've tried to suppress do seem kind of shilly. He goes on to say, my guess is Biden will be fake assassinated at some point, and these big Fed accounts will say it was fake or an actor. It'll be correct, but the pushback against these controlled opposition claims will lead to further censorship and maligning of MSM skeptics. Yeah, exactly. Exactly what they did to us with the anti-vaxxers. If you're an anti-vaxxer and you're proud of yourself for it, good for you. Maybe you saved a Democrat's life. Good for you. But what you really did is you shot truthers in the foot. Every time you allowed these platforms to censor these worthless ideas, you're crying wolf for people who don't care. Well, the whole thing was to set us up to be shut down. We lost years of content, memes, conversations, ideas, script ideas, animated GIFs, links, networks that have been developed, searchable content. This database of, it's almost a live journal for hundreds of people. They deleted it because anti-vax. Well, nobody in there needed to be told, hey, don't trust anything. Everybody's already rightfully suspicious, but you have these people who feel like it's their prerogative to constantly remind you. You know, it's like almost like church people, like proselytizing. Go to, it's like you have to be aware of this every second of the day or something. My point being, they used anti-vaxxers as sabotage because they had the public's acquiescence to the censorship because the public had been convinced it was a public health emergency. And so I think this guy's right here. Noel here is right that they're going to say it's problematic that we have these people who are calling things fake at this level and causing confusion. It's extremely ironic considering that the mass media is there to confuse you by design. That is its purpose. But they're the only ones allowed to confuse you. Biden says the attacks on Israel was like 15 9/11s. Can we get the math on that? What's 15 times 9/11 times 10/7? Here's a meme. It's got Vince McMahon. 10 9/11s? Yeah, eyebrows up. 13 9/11s? Okay, now you're talking. Eyes open wide. 15 9/11s? Jaw hits the floor. That's it. 15 9/11s. Leo Biddle says, do you think viruses exist, Tim? I think it's a construct. I think the pandemic model is unrealistic and based on lies. I do believe that they have taken advantage of just cyclical seasonal sicknesses and rebranded it and attached it to a bunch of propaganda in order to get people to go along with this radical change in our paradigm. But I specifically think that the virus concept was introduced into the modern world to replace the old concept of sin because they're updating our priesthood. They've updated the globe. I'm sorry, the God construct, the God construct, the angry God. It's kind of the globe. It's the biggest picture, the biggest authority. When they showed us the face of Gaia with blue marble, to me that was the introduction of a unifying God construct. They needed the eschatology, global warming. They needed the relationship between the priesthood and the believers who need to be saved. And part of the salvation from the modern sin is, of course, the ritual of vaccination. As far as this sin concept goes, I think what they've done too is they've replaced the moral panic, like the panic-demic, with the pandemic. And there are parallels here. Pan does have to do, if you get to the etymology of it, with fear, and it's based on ruling people by fear. But it's interesting to note that the utopians who are progressive are really worried about the virus and pandemics. The MAGA regressives, or what would you call them, the traditionalists, they still believe in sin. They don't believe in viruses. Well, they do, but they don't believe in vaccines. But they believe in sin. They fall for the satanic panic narratives. My point being, panicdemic and moral panicdemic, these are ways of controlling people, and they're phasing out the old one and bringing in the new. I also don't believe that the vaccines kill people. I think the people who say that are true believers in it, and pat yourself on the back for being a good believer or whatever. Isn't that what you get? You get some accolades. Isn't that some kind of a thing? Like, oh, I believe in it, so I get some kind of a title or something. In this world, we reward believers and snowflakes, the faithful. And I'm just saying that a lot of truthers are believers. And I don't think that if you're a believer, you exist in truth. I think you're relatively truthful compared to the other guys who've been branded as liars. It's just too subjective. My point being, if you can't point to a pile of bodies, I'm not going to believe that there's an actual pile of bodies, whether it's 40 dead babies or 6 million vax killed people. And the numbers are always changing. Joined by War Child from D Live. Thank you for joining. Kevin Morning says the story is running off video games and Tom Clancy. Yeah, Tom Clancy's a big name in metascripting. Commenter says recent study says cold air can damage the immune system, making it easier for viruses to make you sick. You know what can be transmitted as a pandemic? Hypochondria, religions, memes. Like, some things can be communicated, but mind viruses in that sense do kind of exist. I guess in that sense, you could consider me to be a mind virus carrier because I'm trafficking in. But the premise of the virus and the virus of the mind is that it doesn't require volition, that you believe something because you were exposed to it, not because you thought about it. And that's a problem. I don't arrive at beliefs because of exposure. I have to know something to be true. So I don't catch, quote, mind viruses. I always thought it was a ridiculous idea until I realized that the way that they've created the media infrastructure, it's designed to leave people incapable of arriving at truth by themselves. They have to find people they trust. The only way to have a grasp on reality if you're a world stager is to be a believer. And if you're a believer, it means you're not filtering from that source. If you're not filtering, you don't have a mental immune system. If you don't have a mental immune system, you might just catch any belief that comes your way as a matter of habit and practice. Mind aids. And if you're a mind aids patient and you're exposed to a concept that the state doesn't want you to have, they're worried that you will catch it and run with it, like conspiracy theories, flat earth. In fact, they've made that argument that people became flat earthers because they watched Alex Jones and YouTube recommended it. So they caught it. Again, the idea here is that you can catch something even if you're really smart otherwise and you're mainstream otherwise. You can catch these ideas. And if you can catch the ideas when you're not paying attention, then shouldn't you want to be protected? Shouldn't you demand that people wear mind masks and get their minds vaccinated before going online? Eventually people will. They will say, hey, this person is tweeting without a mask on. They're spreading mind viruses, mind flu, these influencers. Yeah, maids, says 5 Minutes of Fame. They've got the maids. Gematria 101 says critical thinking is illegal. Yeah, if you have critical thinking, you actually have a banned operating system. You're not supposed to have it. They're supposed to remove it. Like, there were conspiracy theorists who believed that the vaccine would take away your immune system, so you would be dependent on the government to keep you safe from viruses. I'm like, wait a minute, they're giving you AIDS? Well, if you think about it, they have done this mentally. They have mentally given the masses of believers a mental condition equivalent to AIDS, where they cannot defend themselves against any ideas that are intruding. Thus, the need for the government to sanitize everything and keep it safe. Peter W. says that admitting the earth is stationary is hate speech. Oh, yeah, it's anti globe hate speech. Now, you are a liar if you say you know the earth is spinning and curved from what you've perceived. You can only know it or believe you know it to be a spinning ball if you saw it on a screen. From your perspective, it's flat. From your perspective, as a human being, it will always be flat. Exalt says, looked like I was removed from the IPS Discord and South Pole Discord. Yeah, I had to pull you out because you were dropping anti-vax stuff. And what I'm saying, what I've been saying earlier is that that's a foot bullet. And we already talked about this. We lost a Discord server over anti-vax stuff. And if that's your religion or your cause and you want to save Democrats from their own dumb decisions, go for it. But we can't do it in Discord unless we want to lose Discord. We'll need some kind of agreement from you that you will not be dropping anti-vax. It's not even the Nazi stuff anymore. That's kind of gone. But even anti-vax, I don't even care. I'm just annoyed at it because it's stale. It's like you might as well drop Q drops. If we're going to get into stale breadcrumbs and old expired agitprop. But anyway, I think we were all done with it. And I had to pull the channel because we didn't want to be flagged. But if we can get over that, we will open it back up. 5 Minutes of Fame says the Georgia Guidestones prove the Earth was not flying over since the North Star was always seen in the 2-inch square slot 365 days a year. That's why they nuked it. That's why they WTC 7'd the Georgia Guidestones. It was a flat Earth clue. Exalt says, okay, I won't drop anti-vax. Good. Well, I hope you save a few Democrats, and I hope you feel really good about it. The people that want to put your babies in masks, the people that want to control your life, lock you down, take away your dino juice, take away your capitalism, they want to control you and destroy you, but you want to make sure they don't get any side effects. If only you had that kind of compassion for the homeless or the mentally ill. But no, you're going to focus on well-to-do, rich, mostly rich, rich enough to spend their time online tweeting about their political convictions. You want to save them from side effects. Good for you, anti-vaxxer. The fake moral high ground of the anti-vaxxers. False piety. Church ladies. Give me a break. I'm sorry. I mean, worse than Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, I know you believe it, you have your convictions, and you want to save the people who don't give a damn. And then you take the resistance as evidence that you're somehow succeeding or something. It's almost a religion, anti-vax. And not only that, but you're not getting paid for it. I have respect for the anti-vax shills who are, banking off of it, who are making money. Not that I would ever do it. It's unethical. But at least the grifters have something to show for it. What do you have to show for it? Oscar Wilde said, life imitates art far more than art imitates life. And I was going to say life imitates psyops far more than psyops imitate life, because we live in a psyop-driven society. These are just stories. Exalt says, I won't post anti-vax. And I am a free speech absolutist. But free speech does entail a few obligations. Like, you have to accept the consequences of what you're going to say. It's perfectly legal to say what you want to say, and you can make your cases. But just because of the political climate, it doesn't make sense. And then the other part of it is nobody in there, in the server, literally not one person, is going to be in any way, shape, or form enlightened by any of your anti-vax postings, because they've seen it all a million times. You'd be like, it's so redundant. It's like, well, who are you helping here? All you're doing is virtue signaling. Like, look at me, I care for Democrats. I mean, isn't that ultimately what you're saying? Because this is a political decision. The people who side with the MSM church and its priesthood and take its communion are always going to go that way. Glenn Clark says, I walked away for a second. Are you all mad at me? No, no, no. We're not mad at anybody. Just pointing out the fact that we had to kick an anti-vaxxer out of the Discord server because anti-vax is the position of the dupe who has taken the bait for the establishment-friendly counter-narrative. Why are you carrying water for the mainstream media? Tucker Carlson, episode 32, said, you'll be shocked to learn this, but it turns out the whole George Floyd story was a lie. This is such a ridiculous guardrail. Anybody who still thinks this is like groundbreaking is just the exact kind of clueless they need you to be.
Now that we know that it was not, in fact, a pandemic of the unvaccinated, now that we know that Ukraine is not actually winning the war against Russia, it could be time to revisit some of the other slogans we've been assured are true and ordered to repeat. Are they, in fact, true? Did, for example, a racist white cop actually murder?
Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim, real quick. Hey, how you doing? Real quick on the Joe Biden thing and his chin and stuff. You're familiar with the video of Gerald Ford being asked the question, when will we see the first female president, at the Herbert Hoover Library, where he's interviewed by a bunch of little kids and a little girl asks him the question, and he kind of gives this long answer, like very specific too, about how it will happen or won't happen, as though they'll get voted in like the normal way. There'll be an old man in office and he'll die, and that's how the first female president will take over.
Oh, that's
but
right.
The funny
Yes,
thing,
yes.
real quick about that.
Yes, exactly. He did say something about this. Go on.
Yeah, there's a video about it. It's online. But what's funny about that is, with Kamala Harris being in office, if this did happen, she would take over. Kamala Harris was born on the day Herbert Hoover died.
Oh, that's
like
weird.
The exact same day.
Okay. Kamala Harris
it's super
was
weird.
born the day Hoover died. I'm going to have to look into that. These birth dates and death dates are very interesting. Yeah, you're right. 1989, the Gerald Ford interview.
Yeah.
He did say that a woman would occupy the office by being elected upon the death of the president. What a weird thing to say.
It's so weird.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. To
yeah.
a little kid. But, I mean, if you've read, I don't know about what you think of Kathy O'Brien's book. She had a lot to say about Gerald Ford and herself dealing with him, but I don't know about all that stuff. I mean, that could all be hearsay with that book, but, I mean, he did have a thing for little kids, I guess.
Terrible. Nothing about any of these characters would shock me at the end of the day. But, yeah, this is definitely a strange line that he was given, and he did say it to a young lady, and I really don't think that this would be an off-the-cuff thing. But yeah, I'll play the quote here after you hang up, because this is probably relevant. I mean, definitely Biden's face is melting. I mean, how much further can you go?
Yeah, I mean, and if this stuff is, if they are messing with people, maybe the guy's already been taken out or put on a celebrity island, and they're just kind of teasing us for his upcoming death. Who knows?
Interesting. And the thing about Kamala Harris's birthday coinciding with Hoover's death day, I'm not suggesting reincarnation, but they place a lot of stock on dates and astrology.
Yeah.
So there's something there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anyways, man, I'll keep listening and I'm enjoying it. Just wanted to throw that in.
Appreciate you calling in. Call in anytime. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's get to this clip. This is 1989. President Ford interview on female presidents.
For president and a woman for vice president. And the woman and man will win. So you'll end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die. And the woman will become president under the law or Constitution. And once that barrier is broken, from then on, men better be careful, because they'll have a hard time ever even getting a nomination.
Now that's an interesting and ominous warning, considering the proximity to the release of the Barbie feminism, Barbie Land, this horror of Babylon, and the Ken dollification of men today, toxic masculinity and all that. Very interesting and very detailed. I'm going to play this last few seconds again here.
Hard time ever even getting a nomination in the future. But that's the way it's going to happen, and I think it'll probably come sometime in the next 4 or 8 years.
Now he was off there. He thought it'd be sooner than later. But that scenario was quite specific. I would have guessed 33 years. Glenn Clark says, "I'm clearly not mad at me, but Tim being savage to the anti-vax, we're just trying to help people see a point that they're dangerous." No pun intended, I'm sure. And to that I would argue that the people who want to take your AR-15s just want to help you see the point that those things are dangerous, that guns kill people. In fact, I will make the moral and intellectual equivalency between anti-vax and anti-gun. Guns versus needles, left versus right. One is active, one is passive. They are both involved in self-defense, which is interesting, but from a different perspective. One believes that you should be defended by your government. You don't need your own guns. That you should be defended by a government-injected immune system. You don't need your own immune system. Whereas the other side says, no, you got to defend yourself. You need your guns. You need your own immune system. You got to protect your skin borders. So you have this perfect dichotomy, and it's designed this way. And I'm just saying that anti-vaxxers are part of a political campaign that isn't really about saving lives. It's about saving lives, I guess, in this specific scenario, if you believe it all, but like they think they are. They're not really saving lives. Dwayne Garrett mentions here, why not campaign against cigarettes or alcohol? More people die from that, and it's confirmed. Or obesity. If you're going to campaign to save lives, and that's my point here, is like the character Exalt who's posting the anti-vax stuff, and I banned him. I try to get it out of him. I'm asking him, are you saving lives? Are you a hero? Can you at least admit that? Like, I am a hero. I'm trying to save the lives of Democrats from their own dumb decisions that I think might be dangerous. And then if your standard is, well, we have to warn people it's dangerous, okay, well then if you're a warner, if you're a person who's go around society warning people, like the town crier, I got to warn people about the dangers. I'm going to Chicken Little them for everything. Well, I think you can find some more significant threats to their existence than a volitional choice that's between them and their doctor. And the fear and the hype and the vaxophobia kind of peaked around 2021, and then it was like, to people like me, they would say, hey, don't give up hope yet, or don't think you can dismiss us yet, because they probably sterilized us all. There's going to be no more babies. They keep pushing the goalpost back. So here we are in 2023, and if you're still talking about Bill Gates wants to kill us all, it's like if there was any truth to any of that, the Democrats would already be dead, and they wouldn't be voting, and Trump would be a shoo-in. But the fact of it is, it's an overhyped scenario, like climate change or bowl cut shooters shooting up the schools. It's fake. It's actually a psyop. And so, yeah, some things are driving without your seatbelt. Can't do that. Drunk driving, terrible. There are so many things that are far more dangerous. And so I'm kind of with Dwayne Garrett. If you're a hero and you want to save lives, I think you could probably find a better cause. And then you wouldn't be giving money to fuel the counter narrative to the mainstream psyop. You're actually fueling the psyop. It's a religious war. Believe it or not, pro-vax, anti-vax is a religious war. Salty Siren says, oddly specific. Yeah, that President Ford thing. Lately, I've been thinking about President Truman and the atomic bomb. And I remember, after watching Newsbenders, they alluded to the atomic bomb as being the starting point for where they hijacked reality with the news. And I thought, that's interesting. Because if that's when they took over, more or less, that's when they really upped their reality faking game with the advent of the nuke, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think the controls existed much sooner, but I mean, I think that was just like a major step forward in newsbenders when they convinced the public that they could, destroy us all with one blast. That's when they put us into this sim. Hold on a second here. I got a comment. Linda Curtis says the news is the nuke. Yeah, that could be it though. If they blew up objective reality with the news, then yeah, essentially, yeah, it really is. But anyway, let's get back to President Ford. I was just thinking they turned it all into a movie, and it was President Truman, and it's like, could that be a meaning for the Truman Show? Are we in the Truman Show? Because in the Truman Show, they had to build a city. Like, they had to build the enclosure and put him in, and it's a big studio with the fake walls and everything. But it could be that we were put into the Truman Show in our internalized reality about the time that they, quote, blew up or split the atom, destroyed objective reality. We asks, are we still live? Nope, it's a replay. Just a weird coincidence. Okay, so Tucker Carlson is shocked to find out that the George Floyd story is a lie, but he doesn't mean it didn't happen. No, he means that George Floyd killed himself, and that Derek Chauvin just happened to be sitting there at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is so shallow. And he has to sit there with that concentrated look on his face, like he's kind of frowning. He's got that, I don't know. I had this theory that he's wearing a prosthetic forehead, that like a wraparound, like a headband, that gives him that crease there, so he always looks like he's paying attention to this mundane crap. I could not do Tucker Carlson's job and keep that look on my face like I'm really transfixed by these cool facts. I couldn't even fake it. I would need to have some kind of prosthetic crease on my forehead to make it look like I'm giving a... Symbia says, Tucker Carlson fake concern brow. Yeah, that'd be a cool Halloween costume. You just need like a headband, part wig, a little bit of rubber. Easy to make. They could deep fake that. This is where it's at, says Tucker reads a script. Yeah, look, here, this is just a fact. If you can read a script on TV and make it look like you're real, you could be replaced by an animatronic. There's nothing you're doing that an animatronic couldn't do. I've been following a lot of Japanese Twitter accounts on the flat earth topic, and they are hilarious. Love their work, love their memes. And now with Google Translate, you can read them, and you can see that the topic's not going away because they keep faking space badly. Like, if you want flat earthers to shut up, just stop faking space. Just stop talking about it. This is where it's at, says, the news and government is one. We are in the Truman Show. News benders is the most realistic thing we've ever seen. Oh, yeah. They bend reality by bending the news. And they understate it. They're like, oh, 5 years in advance. No, try 50. Try 100. Gemacho 101 says, Gerald Ford aircraft carrier was on the news on Kamala's birthday, 10/20. She was born in 64. Ford aircraft carrier is number 64, headed to Israel. Interesting. Now, I've heard some comparisons between Ford as being bumbling and falling around and Joe Biden, and some other connections here between that and maybe the Gulf of Tonkin. There's going to be something with that carrier, according to some. Something else, Kamala's birthday. Now, do you remember when Kamala was chosen to be the VP? There was this Drudge Report headline that said, Rip Kamala, or Rip Kamala Harris. And I was like, wait a minute, Rip Kamala Harris? This is in August of 2020. And then Kamala Harris is like, I'm like, what's going on here? WWE superstar James Harris, popularly known as Kamala, passed away at 70. One of the most iconic superstars. Kind of recognize him. Anyway, this wrestler, Kamala Harris, Rip Kamala, this was in the news about the time they picked her. Interesting, anyway. Don't know what to make of it all, but look, Ronald Reagan was shot. Him and Hinckley, were shot by John Hinckley, who happened to have JFK's birthday. So a presidential would-be assassin has the birthday of a president who was assassinated. These are just interesting connections. This is where it's at. It says Kamala Harris is Lisa Simpson. Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, Simpsons have had so many episodes that at this point, you can almost take any news story and say it was predicted by The Simpsons. And I'd make one other point here. For predictive programming to count, it has to be assumed that it was viewed by the same people who are going to see the fake news event. It has to be reaching the targets. Does anybody watch The Simpsons anymore? This is where it's at. It says, auto-hoaxing makes life less stressful and free from the stress of news and history. Stress-free living. Yeah, you're not worried about aliens. You're not worried about pretty much any of these things that they've been hyping. Meteors, asteroids, comets, global warming. And it matters. It matters when you've removed superstition and fear from your frame of reference for a lot of reasons. And it all has to do with mind control and the manipulation of stressed out populations. And I'm actually working on a manuscript on this topic having to do with the relationship between man and media, and how media can be defined, I think, by its characteristics as a narcissist, and what implications that has for the people who are subject to it. But part of the program is what I call, in one of the chapters, the news cycle of abuse. The cycle of abuse is they're really mean to you, then they're really nice to you. And the way it works is the mean stuff, the cruel stuff, even if it's covert, we're just talking psychological manipulation, the mean stuff gets put into your subconscious. It's repressed. The nice stuff really stands out. And when you're deprived of positive attention, affection, you're mentally and psychologically abused for a period of time, you're starved for the affection, attention, and validation. So when they put on their good guy mask, you're susceptible to it and you forget all the bad stuff. And then once you get a little too accustomed to that, they take off that mask again, bring back the devil, and put you through the torment again, and the cycle begins. And this intermittent abuse and reward locks people into these abusive relationship cycles. And I think you can see how that same cycle is used by the mass media, which delivers all of the stimuli, positive and negative. It's the source for all of it. And I'm also mentioning this in the context of these generational psyops. This generation's 9/11, Israel's 9/11, the dead baby story being a recycled version of a previous dead baby story. These are intermittent examples, where it's like every once in a while have the sky fall. Every once in a while flood them. Every once in a while have some mass atrocity in this form. And it works. Salty Siren says trauma bond. Exactly. And then what's more, and this is where it's very pernicious, is that when a population, I think this is the very purpose of mass mediation, is that the population is in this interpretation of reality. It's not the real thing, but it's an interpretation, and it's the dominant and the only one, and there's no alternative. So you can't really unplug. And I think when people unplug, or if you try to unplug from a closed system, you're confronted with the vacuum. And I think that leads people to go to the next available source of sense and order. So you break away from the mainstream, you fall for an Alex Jones, or you go woke. So you didn't even break free because you're still dependent on some source. That's why I've been mocking the red pillars. You should have dispensed with the idea of pills. They're giving you blue pills. You're like, oh, I don't like these. I'll take the red ones, please. Refuse to tell them what's fake. You should know Just surely based. I think you can just do a quick logical take on things. Occam's razor, a few heuristics, and you can kind of cut down on a lot of things. Like, for example, if they faked Apollo 11, everything else they've done in space is fake. If these 20 or 30 school shootings we've examined have been fake, yeah, they're all fake. Dead babies on the floor on 10/10, 1990, fake. Dead babies on the ground 10/10, 2023, probably fake. There's a pattern here that we're eliciting here. All right, let's see here. Eddie F says, I feel lost now that I know life is fake. I think people feel like this after they leave religions. I think that is the case. And you'll notice this is also true with cults. So I talked about how individuals leave these toxic interpersonal relationships and they go to the next one because they haven't learned how to function in their own reality because it's been taken from them and they've replaced it with someone else's. So oftentimes they go to some other controlling person, one controller to another. And it's the same with cults. People will go from cult to cult, religion to religion, denomination to denomination, priest to priest, looking for the answer, the right guru, when ultimately the need to have that mediator is a sign of a person who's been, I think, disabused of their own, I think, the need to be the arbiter of what you believe to be true or false. They've been deposed. Mind control. Mom with Son says, did Twitch just end streaming? Did we have a gremlin attack? Some gremlins on hang gliders flew over the ice wall, sabotaged the infrastructure. I'm looking here. It looks like we're good. I'm going to have to refresh the audio stream. So if you're listening on the audio streams, or you were, there would be a temporary break, but I just fixed it. Okay, we're here on hour 3, I believe. This is Infinite Plane SATURNDAY, 10/21/2023. Just went out for a second. It's back on. Salty says, this realm feels like being a character in someone else's imagination. This is where it's at. Says, auto-hoaxing means there aren't any more rabbit holes to go down. Now that's an interesting point there as well. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, welcome hour 3.
Yeah, beginning of hour 3. What topics have piqued your interest today so far?
I just tuned in, so
Well,
are you still talking about the same stuff?
Yeah, for the most part. We've been talking about a few things like Greta Thunberg is mad at Hamas for using plastic bags to carry off the Israeli dead baby heads because they're not recyclable. But
I thought of doing a sketch with, like, you know how Geppetto was a woodworker? But I want Geppetto to woodwork some baby guillotines and then say it's like he's from Palestine. He's Palestinian Hamas or Geppetto.
Who's Geppetto? Oh, from Pinocchio.
Yeah, he's a woodworker.
I haven't seen
So,
it.
like,
I heard
just-
Tom Hanks was going to be Geppetto, and I'm like, wow. Of all people, Geppetto?
Just tiny guillotines or maybe like automatic guillotines just to like push them out quick as possible.
Right. Well, the whole point of it here, though, is that there weren't any dead kids. That the whole thing was just a hoax. And what's her name? Greta sides with Gaza, but she's also a major global warmist, and it was a political cartoon. It wasn't real. Sorry.
I thought you were saying she actually came out and said that.
No, she literally said I stand with Gaza, but she wasn't mad about Hamas carrying off baby heads in plastic bags. Like that wasn't a.
Speaking of plastic bag, like I work for a company that makes every plastic trash bag in America for the most part, and when I go out in public and I tell people, I can tell right away that from their reaction if they're like what wing they're on, if they're left or right. Because, like, they'll be like, oh, plastic bags? Like, they'll get disgusted. But I'm like, my company recycles more than any other company in America. And they don't even care.
Interesting. I use plastic bags for the trash bags I get. They're cheaper, but they're recyclable. The only problem is they're transparent. So I get cheaper bags. They're good for Gaia, but now
But
my
they can see your dirty laundry inside of it.
yeah,
What you're buying.
very strange. I don't know if it's intentional or not. Like maybe it's some kind of shame thing. I mean, obviously they want
I
to
know.
see in the bag that you're not putting non-recyclables, but yeah, I think of recycling as a way of expiating the guilt for your sins against the climate.
Yeah, like when my neighbors see me with my clear trash bag walking out with like 24 beer cans and 2 bottles and a couple of McDonald's wrappers, and I'm like trying to tell them how fluoride is bad in the water.
Is
They're
it?
like, "Come on, man, what are you even
Is
eating?"
is that even true? Is fluoride bad in the water true, or is that a lie made up to help Alex Jones sell water filters?
As someone, I do commercial transport as I'm a truck driver for a living, and I go to these water processing plants that process a lot of the majority of the bottles of water, and they truck in. So these people that fear pipes and lead pipes, which is kind of understandable, like the water treatment plants is kind of understandable, but they don't understand that their water is probably manufactured in one place, then trucked over in these liquid truck haulers to another uh, plant to be bottled. So they're and then like they tube it through um, a bunch of pipes into holding tanks, which is metal. So they're like your water's going to be touching a lot of metal, even if you drink bottled water.
Right, right. No, I
Then
understand.
there's microplastics.
Look,
Then there's
the thing
microplastics
is, okay,
allegedly.
these are all superstitions. I think there's a superstitious dread of the water and of the sky. And the water is an old one. The idea, oh, the other tribe is poisoning the wells. These are easy fears to spread. And I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to be afraid of fluoridated water because of Alex Jones. And they say, oh, they put fluoride in the water because it makes you apathetic. Really? So I can drink some water here and I'll just chill. I won't be all angsty. I can actually relax for once. Let me drink some tap water. It doesn't work. Sorry, the fluoride has not made me apathetic.
Yeah, I think that those how the frogs transition is from field runoff water into creeks, and I've seen some deer on the side of the road with some crazy tumors, and so I don't even want to eat wild game anymore. Like I don't even know what's safe to eat.
Well, look, I don't have any of those fears, to be honest. I think that a lot of the trutherisms are based on superstitions, and I'm trying to really get rid of a lot of that stuff. Because look how much damage it's done in the last few years to the cohesion of any opposition to mainstream lies. Just the brainwashing is so intense. I guess it's always been this way.
Well, I think everyone wants to know what do you eat? What's your diet consist of?
Mine? Wouldn't you want to know what
Yeah,
I
what
look
do you
like
eat?
first? Wouldn't you want to know what I look like before you decide to take my
Well,
dietary
we
recommendations?
saw we saw your Mark Sargent video on the student council video or whatever it's called.
Did I look reasonably healthy?
You looked possibly like in the mid state of your transgendered into a man.
Yeah, you may not want to eat what I'm eating. But look, I don't take
You don't
advice from
like to say
people
what you
like,
eat?
no, it's not that. It's like, why is it even relevant? Like, I want, like, what are you eating so I can avoid it? No, I'm just kidding. But what I mean is, like, why would you listen? Do you want to
I
follow? Like,
honestly think
I look at Alex
I
Jones and I'm
honestly
like,
think
I'm not going to take
condiments.
what he's
I think
taking.
condiments. I think condiments is what's making people anything with preservatives. Like if you can set it on the counter and for 3 months, I think anything with preservatives you probably shouldn't eat.
I don't even know if that's
But I
bad.
mean that's
Honestly,
my
I don't.
own take.
Look. I'm just saying I don't take health advice from truthers. I just don't. For a lot of reasons, and I think it's because they're given alternative things, and it's just a target market thing, and it's very faddish. And I don't follow health fads, and a lot of these people are fakes anyway. Like, were you trying to follow? I don't know if you followed him very much, but the rubber man, what they call him? The guy, the liver man. He looked like he had a big rubber bodysuit. The liver man, he ate nothing but liver, and he got super big, and you find out he was all using drugs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I heard it. Yeah, I think I heard of that. It, like he was like uh I did that was a couple years ago, wasn't it?
When he
Is he
got
still
caught, I
alive?
don't know when he got caught, but I'm just saying, I'm not taking health advice from people on the internet or anything like that. Like if you go to the Flat Earth Conference right now in Vegas, Dave Murphy's there, and he'll extol the benefits of drinking your own urine. And I'm like, okay, um, I'm good. I'm gonna try some other things first, like jogging. I'd have to look
Yeah,
at
like
somebody
how do
first.
people not? How do not people see like? You don't even have to piss on your grass or anything.
Well, hey, I
But
gotta,
where
I gotta,
dogs pee,
I gotta take a
everything
quick
everything
call
dies.
here. Someone else is trying to call in. Appreciate it very much. Have a great Infinite Plane Saturday. Go to infiniteplane.live if you want to listen on audio.
All right, take it easy, dude.
I have to address a comment here. This is very important. A comment by, here it is, Eddie F. Eddie F says, and we were talking about the fakery, he said, besides talking about reality, how do you interact with people around you? And then he went on to say something I thought was kind of interesting. What's left after knowing the majority of our reality is false? I've become emotionless. And here's what I want to say about that. Why are you disconcerted that all those dead kids are fake, that nukes are fake, that COVID was fake, that terrorism is fake, that they're using psychological warfare instead of physical warfare, that all the major threats to your existence aren't real? Like, how does that make you feel bad? Why is that bad news? Like, I'm sorry to tell you, but you know those thousands of kids that were killed by bowl cut Nazis? Yeah, didn't happen. They're still alive. They were a bunch of actors. I can understand being a little irate that they milked you for your attention, your money, your grief, and they manipulated you. I can understand being mad that these people are con artists. But being mad that all these dead kids aren't really dead, or that Maui, you know, all those kids in Maui that were fried by the Chinese space lasers didn't happen. Like, that should be uplifting. It should be good news. When I find out that these mass atrocities were hoaxes, like Vegas was a hoax. Nobody died or cried. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm so let down. I can't feel anything. Those people aren't dead. It's good news. Strange. It's strange, though. There are, and I'm not saying you are, but there are many people out there, I consider them to be death clingers, where you can give them all the evidence in the world that the events as televised were fake, and they're still going to hold on to hope. I'm sure somebody died. Please, let me have at least one. There's at least one dead person there. One 9/11 jumper died. Please. Didn't they leave somebody behind like they did on the moon, the cameraman that recorded the moon landing when it took off? Somebody was left behind in the Twin Towers. One crisis actor's dead. Please. I'm like, no, nobody's dead. Nobody died or cried. And people who are true believers in this stuff will attack you. They're like, you deserve to die for saying that nobody died. I bet I mean, I've seen people commenting to that effect. Like, a lot of people would want to see you arrested, possibly executed. I could see it. I could see some of these MSM fundamentalists lining up all the truthers and massacring them. In fact, that happened. Sorry, it wasn't even parody. The guy that shot up the bank a few months ago, he was a Redditor. The Redditor shooter who shot up a bank said he shot up the bank, and this was in Louisville, because he wanted to show people how bad guns are. He was an anti-gun activist. This would be like David Hogg shooting up a movie theater. Body cam, Louisville, Kentucky cops take down shooter. I believe he even had a manifesto. Louisville bank mass murderer was an anti-gunner. Yeah, an anti-gunner picks up an AR-15 to score political points, 25 years old, goes to a bank, and even shot a cop in the head. 5 people dead, 6 injured. Old National Bank executives killed in Louisville mass murder. Again, shooter was anti-gun. JC says it didn't happen. There's no evidence to suggest that it did happen. There's plenty to suggest that it didn't. And given that it's coming from the mouth of a pathologically lying media, it's safe to say it's fake until proven real. Like, they don't have a track record of telling the truth, so at no point do I say, hey, this one's probably real, I haven't looked into it. A lot of people will automatically assume that the news they didn't see is just true by default. If it wasn't true, somebody would have exposed it. No, not a safe guess at all. If you didn't watch it, you can assume it safely to be fake until presented with something to suggest otherwise. Dar McQueen says, I leave 30 minutes from Louisville. I never heard of it because I don't watch the news. Interesting. That is interesting there. It's like right there where you are. If it was real, it would have reverberated, in my opinion. These are closed movie sets. Like real tragedies, real deaths have real community impacts. Funerals do happen. People move. There are shrines put up. You can see many examples of how people respond to actual tragedy. But what you don't find with many of these psyops year after year are these, annual pilgrimages. You don't see the families maintaining anything. I went over to the shrine in Aurora, Colorado that was erected for the victims of the Joker shooting. And they opened up this shrine next to their courthouse, and it was comprised of a bunch of I guess they were like swans made into a pyramid, and each swan represented one of the dead. So they set up this whole thing, and I was over there when they opened it, and I was like, wait a minute here. There's some people there on the ground walking around it. They must be mourning. So I'm out there by the courthouse, and I'm looking at the Aurora shootings sculpture shrine and these people walking around it. I get closer and I see like one pile of flowers there. It wasn't like a bunch of families were there looking at it. And so the people who were walking around it weren't even looking at this memorial. They were hunting for Pokemons on their phones. So I find out that the same day that the city of Aurora is opening up this shrine, this memorial to the theater shooting, there's a Pokemon hunt in the same area at that courthouse. Aurora's memorial to the 2012 theater shooting takes flight. I was actually live streaming, and I had my live stream cut off midstream. Even then, we were being censored pretty hard. And I just called this thing a colossal waste of money. But anyway, if you were driving by and you were in the media and you said, hey, look, there's the new shrine, you would think all these people were crying, looking at pictures on their phones of their dead loved ones. No, they were playing Pokemon. This is where it's at, says Tim, can you look into the Keith Moses case, please? Thank you. I will look into it. Keith Moses. JC says, this is where worldwide news has the advantage of fake things in a small spotlight makes them hard to confirm. Yeah, exactly. The confirmation thing, it's hard to prove a negative. And there was a time when, I think it was Sidethorn Journalist, big auto hoaxer, where he was going around from scene to scene, offering $100,000 to anybody who could prove that somebody died. And at the time, it looked like, okay, this guy's legit. He's going to expose this stuff. He went to 33 school shooting locations. At each one, he demanded evidence that somebody actually died, offering $100,000. I think he was in Sutherland Springs when he threatened a crisis actor and he got arrested in front of Vice. His sidekick, Conspiracy Grandma, also got arrested and got put into a mental institution. So what we had were two preeminent auto hoaxers going to jail, one for gun crimes and threats and the other for, being part of it or something. My point being, they went to 33 locations offering $100,000 for somebody to prove somebody died. It never happened. Nobody took the money. And later I was like, wait a minute here. Why didn't he offer $100,000 to a whistleblower? Nope. He offered $100,000 to prove somebody died. Well, he would know that nobody died if he's saying it's a hoax. So you're asking for $100,000 to prove a negative? In other words, his entire act was designed to fail. It was designed to produce no results, and then he could be revealed to be some kind of a psycho because all people who say school shootings are fake are somehow, extremists. And the fact that he got picked up on gun charges in Texas. It all just kind of fits this, I would say, a template they're creating. Not to mention, they put conspiracy grandma in a like mental asylum or something like that. Here's the article from it, and this is back in 2018. Sutherland Springs crisis actor conspiracy theorist was arrested for trespassing while harassing victims of the Sutherland Springs church. Definitely a closed movie set, and these two were clearly set up to set us up. Again, offering $100,000 for something that doesn't exist doesn't make any sense. It's like, I'll give you $10 million if you can show me a moon rock. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. It makes it appear that you're someone who's actually trying to expose something. This is where it's at. It says Vice is a closed set. Oh yeah, I would say not only is Vice a closed set, but these are actors on their stage. And of course, this was all 33. They went to 33 locations. Give me a break. JC says, expanded up to NASA's budget and anything is possible. Yes, NASA is there for mind control. Outer space is just a metaphor for inner space. Space wars, we're in the middle of a mind space war. When they're flooding you with memes and tweets, yeah, this is trying to occupy your mind space. Elon Musk, leading promulgator of mind, space junk, and space junk. Okay, I'll take a look at this Keith Moses case. A couple of questions you have to ask yourself. Is it fakeable? And is there an obvious and overt political agenda immediately attachable to it? Is it being hyped up by any political organization or activists? That's generally what I look for. Although there are real things that do get co-opted, or they add them to the statistics. But the fakeability question is very important, and it is important to put into your frame of reference. Like, if you didn't know space was fakeable, if you didn't know nukes were fakeable, you would live in a different reality than I live in. And mine's much more peaceful for having, the understanding about how this is indeed mind war. This is where it's at. It says Elon Musk has beef with Kanye West. I thought they were BFFs. Musk is a world stage character, top to bottom. Ye is an interesting one because he could be second generation, like Pete Davidson. There's a few characters I've isolated who are very, very interesting to me in that they would necessarily have been born into a family where their parents have high levels of intel, high security clearance, high levels of awareness about how things work. And it's like, how do you let your kids into this stuff? Like, for example, David Hogg. Do you remember a couple of months ago, David Hogg was talking about how weird it was that his parents work for the FBI and are parts of all kinds of crazy stuff? He kind of bragged about it. He'd bragged that his parents were parts of some kind of crazy things. His dad, FBI agent, retired. All right, I think we've covered most of the notes. I'm going through my minds.com/infinite plane society if you want to follow me there. Trump tweeted a picture of himself as Jesus. Just a heads up. This Joe Biden's masky face, yeah, they're definitely setting us up for something, and maybe they want to sow confusion. They don't care. Look, the way this thing works, they don't care if you say it was a body double or it was real, as long as you don't call it all fake. They really want to get rid of the auto hoax critique. They really can't face it. And honestly, Wu's news, I think, is really what creates the huge problem here. January 6th is meant to be a psyop to frame the next election cycle and politics in general for years to come, and yet it's so fake that it undermines all of that. If you watched Woo's news breakdown of January 6th, you probably wouldn't ever vote again. They don't want that happening. They need you to be a participant. I'm going to play this clip here. It's a few excerpts from various appearances of Buzz Aldrin talking about how we never went to the moon.
Let's look at the photo. You say that's me? Okay. Check out the name badge. It says Aldrin. Looks like you're right. But notice the helmet. Can you see my face? No. This is a secret I've been keeping for almost half a century. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and I pulled off humanity's first extraterrestrial prank.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest? It didn't happen. It could have been scary. Let's look at the photo. You say
it didn't happen, could have been scary. I mean, who knows what he's talking about? It's very ambiguous. I don't think this is a reveal. Maybe it's out of context. Don't know. Strange. But this is one of the points that I've been making quite a bit lately about how you can get facts put out there in the public, but without the proper context, they mean nothing. Buzz Aldrin could say we faked the moon landing at this point, and it would get drowned out. They just these disparate facts outside of the context of the world stage, viewed as such, aren't even facts anymore. You know, facts in a realm of subjectivity are fundamentally meaningless and divorced from reality. JC says no astronauts can agree about the stars. Yeah, it depends on who you ask. You ask Don Petit, and you can see comets and stars and colors. And then others were like, oh, it's pitch black, nothing to see. Like, well, which is it? It's like, are the babies dead? Or did they never exist? Is it full of stars, or is it completely black? Like, these are completely contradictory answers. They just cannot be reconciled. Dharma Queen says, war is confusion, so in a time of war it stands to reason people would lose touch with reality. The war will end when enough people decide to turn it off. Oh yeah, and this one in particular has all the hallmarks of a long-term agenda. You have conspiracy theories that they plant there, like they knew about it, they let it happen, it was an inside job. And all these conspiracy theories assume it happened. This is where it's at, says, was Buzz doing a parody bit? Yeah, he was doing a parody there about the moon landing. And they get laugh tracks associated with it. And I think that might be part of the psyop. You know, when you go outside of what the collective thinks and they laugh at you, it sends a message. It's a powerful message. You don't want to be outgrouped. You might want to change that. Might want to conform or assert it's just a joke. There's something vaguely threatening about the large group laughing at something to somebody who might be insecure or who doesn't want to stand up to the mob. Mob psychology, like the way they use fashion to spread 2020 with the masks. It really did work. They used fashion to spread the entire new ideology and the whole new way of looking at everything. But the laughter there is associated with speculation. And I think that's one of the reasons why all the hit pieces against most conspiracy theorists have been designed to make them look either laughable or crazy. All right, let's see what else we have here. Going through my notes. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's IPS Insider, INCITER, the name of our print publication, which will be coming to life here very soon. We were sort of delayed. Apparently I'm too dangerous to hire to be a cashier. They did my background check and probably saw my Twitter account. Maybe that is what happened here. JC says Astronauts Gone Wild. Well, Astronauts Gone Wild is a guardrail, by the way. Yes, it's true that they fake a lot of stuff, but Astronauts Gone Wild merely asserts that they didn't go all the way to the moon. It doesn't say space is fake. It doesn't say Earth isn't exactly as they show. It doesn't go all the way. The guy that got punched by Neil Armstrong, or was it Buzz that punched him? The whole point of it is that was a setup. That was a red herring controlled opposition, doesn't go all the way, but manages to stifle the conversation just short of calling it all fake. Illusion Warfare posted this. Jim Jordan looks like Harvey Dent from Batman. And that is kind of interesting considering how much the Batman story has been overlaid with politics in the last couple of years. Probably not a coincidence. And we've done a lot of these breakdowns on Batman and Joker. Joker associated with the radical left, Batman with the radical right. Very interesting split there. And you'll see how it's used throughout these various psyops pretty consistently. The Batman franchise with Christopher Nolan. Very notable metascriptor. I guess many would consider him to be on par with Kubrick. If you had a contemporary Kubrick, it's going to be Nolan, who just did the nuke. By the way, J.K. Rowling's has a tattoo, Salve Coagula, on her arm, which is the same tattoo Baphomet has. So why would J.K. Rowling have a Baphomet tattoo? Very interesting, considering her anti-trans rhetoric as well. Very notable there. So many interesting clues and tweets that I have here. You have to follow my Twitter feed if you want to get all these links. I highly recommend that you read Jewish Space Lasers by Mike Rothschild. And the reason why is that if you're going to make claims about some centralized control and you think you can point your fingers at this group, you might want to see the best research on the material to see if what you're asserting is baseless or not. And in that case, there's quite a lot of questions raised about many just almost cliche assumptions and statements people make. Like, for example, this is terrible. Sorry, this is great. This is a meme someone just sent to me. Crispy dead baby or adorable puppy, the choice is yours. This is a perfect example of our bifurcated reality. So apparently you have a picture of a puppy or a dead baby that's been cooked. Now, one of them is AI generated, the other isn't. And people are just going with whatever fits their cognitive bias and their political persuasion. It's kind of a test. You can see where somebody is on the present war based on what they see there. Yeah, the choice is ours, illusion or reality. Great tweet there. Breadcrumb says, a girl I know just got that symbol tattooed on her, Harry Potter fan. I think it's called the Deadly Hollows or something. We says, are we demonizing the Baphomet again? I would ask, well, what's your take on the Baphomet? First of all, I mean, you are talking about the symbol of the Church of Satan. So to say that it's being demonized is a little ironic, considering it's pretty much the preeminent symbol of Satanism, a religion that believes in demons. Or at least I guess, is he the king of the demons? What is Satan's thing when he summons the demons in Paradise Lost? My point being, I don't know if you can clean up Baphomet's image to undemonize Baphomet. We can try, but how would you do that? All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, this is a good one. German Chancellor's entourage in Israel posted a viral video of them ducking under Hamas's missiles prior to leaving an Israeli airport. The only problem is their dramatic performance accidentally captured people in the background walking around as though nothing were happening. This is very similar to how they fake hurricanes or extreme weather out of a drizzle or a breeze. They lean into the wind and act like they're about to fall over. This is pretty bad. Not the worst I've ever seen, but this is actually typical. They're faking like they're being attacked. I think Hillary Clinton did this too. Didn't Hillary Clinton once claim that they were being sniped and that the plane was being shot at? And then the pictures of her, here it is, recalling Hillary Clinton's claim of landing under sniper fire. Clinton forced to admit she exaggerated the tale of coming under sniper fire during her visit to Bosnia. Clinton says she misspoke. Okay, anyway, this is her 1996 landing in Bosnia. She had to backpedal after describing dodging bullets. I guess she jumped into the cockpit and landed them safely, dodging bullets and everything. Anyway, nothing new there. And then there's a video that shows her on the tarmac getting hugged, just chilling. They obviously weren't in a hurry. Breadcrumb says, look at the Neuralink machine and you can see it's the Baphomet head on it. Now, the Baphomet is not the devil, not necessarily. And these are all really subjective terms anyway. Like, okay, so the devil's the bad guy, and the good guy is the one that murdered everybody with the flood. Okay, got that. And the one who, you go down the story, and it's like, it's really hard to say. It's very relative. Commenter says, one of my favorite edgelord parables is asking mainstream atheists what year it is. Interesting. The year would also depend on, I guess you have the year of light. You know, the Masonic cult adds like 4,000 years to it. But no, the thing is, the atheists will say that we've broken free of the stranglehold of religion who previously defined and labeled everything, which is more or less true. But being an atheist, or the term atheist, is also kind of biased, I think. I think the reason why Christopher Hitchens started using the term non-theist is because he didn't want it to only be interpreted within the question of the biblical God. Like people say, do you believe in God? It's like, well, do you have to answer it as though we're referencing the Christian God? And these terms are just way too subjective. Like again, the Baphomet goat thing is very ominous looking, that's for sure. But what is it really? You know, it's not even a person. It's not even meant to be an actual, it's more of a statue or a totem that has a combination of various symbols. So I don't think you could say it's a person, and moreover, it's mostly, I think, related to Mercury and Hermes and the idea of the magician. But he looks like the devil. And the devil tarot card has mostly all the same characteristics. Commenter says, Baphomet is not a human and animal, but also an angel. Yes. Yes, he's got the angel wings. But it's as above, so below. You know, the whole concept, one hand up, one hand down. That has to do with Hermetics and Hermes Trismegistus, this idea of this as above, so below, that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. It's kind of a cornerstone of occult belief. Like if you're doing witchcraft and magic, it's because you believe that you are a microcosm of the universe and you can influence it. Which might explain why she would actually have it, J.K. Rowling's, because she's, you know, the Harry Potter magic thing would all be based on that very premise. But again, I don't really have any sort of opinions about Baphomet as being the devil or the Masons secretly worshiping Baphomet. So much of that is just mythology. Same with the devil himself. You know, people talk about the devil and hell and all this stuff, or the Antichrist, which is very popular these days. But we're also looking at the fact that we're living in an age of manufactured contemporary mythologies, like contemporary myths. The fact of it is, Donald Trump has been, through predictive programming, he has been cast as the Antichrist in so many different ways. But it's not the biblical Antichrist. It's like a combination of the Hollywood Antichrist and the biblical. It's an amalgamation. JC says, was looking at the satellite hoax today. So many examples of it online, just sataloons. Yeah, a lot of people still lie. And this is an interesting one for me. A lot of people feel comfortable lying to defend the existence of orbit and satellites. They'll say, "Oh, I saw it. I saw the space station and it went over my house." I'm like, "When and where? I don't remember." Like, you guys are the worst eyewitnesses. If you saw a spacecraft and you can't remember when or where, it'd be like saying, "I saw Bigfoot. Where were you? I don't remember. I forgot." Like, that's notable. Seeing a spaceship is a big deal. And if you're saying you saw a spaceship, you need to bring receipts because it's an extraordinary claim. But the claims have always been vague. But once I discovered or paid more attention and realized the Earth's got a shadow that cancels out low Earth orbit satellites being viewed more than half an hour after sunset, suddenly all these people claiming that they were seeing these low Earth orbit satellites shut their mouths. And then, like, well, what did I see then? Well, if it had a light, it was a light on the craft. And satellites don't have light bulbs, so it wasn't a satellite. We can rule that out. Like, well, what was it? You tell me. You can assert it's a UFO, or you can bring out your Occam's razor and just say, okay, it was an airplane. The ISS has been falsely placed into your realm of possibility, same with UFOs. And that's an old trick. One of the reasons why they infuse us with so much of this entertainment that supports their extraordinary claims is to keep things in your frame of reference so it seems believable. One of the reasons why they had that movie Modern Warfare 3 come out the night before this thing happens in Israel. They wanted your frame of reference to include this sudden war, modern warfare. JC says, can't see anything 300 miles away. I've looked at some long distance photography, and one website I used to frequent was called Beyond Horizons, and you could see this peak that was 280 miles away. It was in the back of the photo, and this peak was so blurry, like you couldn't really see anything. You could kind of detect it was there. You could not see any details. That's how far back it was at 300 miles. And yet, we have people taking pictures of the space station 300 miles away, and you can see the astronauts on it. And I'm like, wait a minute. The space station is the size of a football field. When I look at this long distance photography, a football field would not be discernible on that mountain 300 miles away. And yet, you're claiming that you can see a space station from 300 miles away in all this detail. We've been joined by Pete Shea. Thank you for joining. I believe Pete Shea believes that the Earth is on the back of a giant dodo bird. Am I getting that right? We haven't spoken in a little while. All right, I believe we've covered a lot. If you had skipped the news for a couple of days this last week, let's just say you tuned it out, you would have missed nothing, because a lot of stuff would have been asserted, a lot of stuff would have been true, you would have been shocked and horrified, and then hours later it would have been debunked. And then you would have realized, okay, none of this stuff happened. So you come back after missing a couple of days, all you missed was a bunch of false alarms. Let's see, Pete Shea has a video, says, the ballers say this is genuine. Okay, now the Ball Earth believers who don't talk about fake space or the space station aren't worth talking to. They're just not being honest with themselves. So this is Mount Fuji as seen from Morro Rock, California. 5,375 miles away. Impossible on a globe world record. Mount Fuji as seen from Morro Rock, California. Okay, I can see Mount Fuji silhouetted against the sun. Sent to me with this is from 4 weeks ago by True Valor Traveler. Sent to me by a pilot with a small local air transport carrier called Icarus. Tolerus. What is this? He said he wanted to wait until the equinox so the sun was exactly due west. Morro Rock Beach has the same latitude as Mount Fuji. So here he is at Morro Rock, 5,000 miles from Mount Fuji, aligning the sun with where his position is, with Mount Fuji in between. We'll play it one more time. Don't know what to make of that. Mount Fuji, as seen from Mora Rock, California, 5,300 miles away. Commenter says, being at the same latitude, how is the sun visible through the mountain? Funny, when the sun is setting in California, it's 40 degrees above the horizon in Japan. Maybe you were... We'll see. I haven't seen any good debunkings here. Not sure what to make of it yet. Pete Shea says, if the video is genuine, then it effin' is Mount Fuji. I have the advanced comparison made. Well, I'm going to say real until proven fake, in this case. From True Valor Traveler. Backstory sounds valid. Sent to me by a pilot with a small local air transport carrier. Said he waited till the equinox so the sun was exactly due west. It's certainly fakeable. If I was going to fake this, I would just put that on there, but I don't know. 5,000 miles, this would imply flatness, would not? This would pretty much debunk the globe. Any globe believers have a reaction to this? A debunk. I'm not talking about tears. Any globers out there willing to call in and talk about this? I'll put a link to the video in the chat. What we're looking at here is Mount Fuji as seen from Mora Rock, California. That's more than 5,000 miles away. It's impossible on a globe. It's silhouetted against the sun. And this was taken by a pilot, supposedly. Tominoid3 says, what altitude? We need some more information. I put a link there. You can ask the person who uploaded it and hopefully get that information. All right, thanks everyone for joining. This has been Infinite Plane Saturday. I'll be sending out the archives via email at ips.monster. I appreciate all the support. The IPS think tank is going to hit the road. It's totally road worthy, if not road legal, but we are going to be advancing a lot of these topics, elevating the conversations very soon. Pete Shea says the ballers at Jim Pandas are the first to call it a fake video when they doubt it, except when it comes to ISS footage. Yeah, isn't that funny? They're like, oh no, that's got to be fake. No, wait a minute here. Every time you're shown fake video, you're like, no, it's real, it's video. If it's video, it's real. If I see it, I say it. Say it's real. I saw it on a screen, it's real. This must be blowing their minds. Anyway, thank you all for joining. This is Neo Mode Gucci Flip, Infinite Gang. And again, you can get the links to the archives and the newsletter below.
It's a creeper beat, man. Come on. You know it.
You're playing, man. Infinite things, man. The Plane Society. Infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane. Doing my thing, do my thing, do my thing, do my thing. Infinite plane, yeah. I live on an infinite plane. I live on an infinite plane. They telling me different things. That's supposed to be pulling the strings, but I know they playing the games. Since I found out today, I live on an infinite plane. I ain't playing no games. I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane. Yeah. I know the news is fake. They're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake. They pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave. All the hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein. Doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took out my page. But I'm infinite gang, infinite plane, playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that I live in is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane. I'm doing different things, yeah, I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Supposed to pull the strings, but they can't follow the game. I'm on the infinite plane.